Oh, baby.
All right, good morning. We're live, top of the morning, everybody. It's 8:05 Eastern Time, and of course 5:05 on the Pacific Coast. East meets West, coast to coast. What do we got here? Active, retired members. We got civilians. We got friends, listeners. How's everybody doing? Listen, I just want to announce Philip Banks just resigned. So John wins the bet. Thank God we didn't bet anything. I'm not shaving my beard. But John had said Philip Banks was going to resign, and I had said it was going to be Ingrid Martin. But I'm sure she's not too far off. I would expect in the next coming days. Dude, we've never seen an administration like this before where everyone's resigning. I mean, we can do a roll call right now of who resigned. What are your thoughts?
Oh, man. So apparently, news went out that Sheena Wright got escorted out of City Hall. Eric Adams says that that's a lie and she didn't resign, but I think she's on her way out too. So, I mean, you can't believe a word that comes out of the guy's mouth, but he said that he's like, apparently, people don't know how to tell the truth anymore. I mean, it was laughable coming from him 100%. But, so he's saying she didn't resign. He said that yesterday, but then this morning we just got news that Phil Banks resigned. Again, they're all gone, right? Like everybody. We New York Magazine just put out all the people around him that resigned or that were indicted and all these other things. They forgot Laura Kavanaugh, which, I mean, it's so hard to keep up. I'll bring that graphic up a little later today. But it's so hard to keep up. Like, I mean, even we did the indictment bingo and people were sending us names. You guys forgot this. I was like, dude, there's like 100 people. Like, it's not like, and then people are like, oh, put together a crime chart. And then like we started doing it, but I was like, it's going to be an historical chart. That's basically what it's going to be. It's not going to be an active chart like this is going on. It's going to be historical because all these people are leaving. Eric, do you think Adams holds on throughout all this?
Listen, I got to be honest. I keep going back and forth, but it's based on how Adams responds. So initially I thought, all right, I mean, there has to be some form of character left in him, some form of shame. I know. And I said, okay, he's going to resign. And then after I saw his speech where he said, I'm not going to resign, I'm going to reign, I was like, wow. He's like the guy that's standing in the middle of rubble. The building's coming down, and he's like, there's just dust everywhere. He's like, no, I'm going to stay here. Everything's fine.
It wasn't me. It was the other guys. It was the guys on the podcast fault. It was Bill de Blasio's fault. Everybody's racist. Everybody's racist. It wasn't my fault.
I'm telling you right now, this is a pinnacle moment in history. We've never seen anyone like this. I mean, I even think Hitler himself would come out of his grave and be like, what? Who is this guy? Because it doesn't matter. I mean, and as everything's falling, he's the guy saying everything looks great. Almost like these people in the George Floyd riots, and they were like, everything's great. It's peaceful. Meanwhile, behind there's burning tires and burning buildings. That's Eric Adams. So at this point, I would say he has to resign. Like, how could he do the job? And I think at this point, that he's pretty confident that Governor Hochul will not remove him. I think she is afraid of some type of race card being pulled on her. Oh, she pulled a black man from the mayoral position. I mean, how could he actually lead from this position? Not that he was leading before, but how could he? Everyone in and around him is resigning. And who wants to take these positions at this point? No one. So he's a man by himself. He has to resign. But honestly, I don't even know what to say with this man.
He's a character, bro. Eric Adams is a character. Who was it? Machiavelli. What did he say? He said, what the hell did he say? He said, you could tell the intelligence of a ruler by the men he surrounds himself with, right?
Yes.
And look at like who Eric Adams has surrounded himself with. So like, even if we were to say that Eric Adams is completely innocent in all of this, even if we were to say that, like, which is a total falsehood, by the way, because he's not I think he's directly involved in all of it. But even if we were to say that he was completely innocent, he didn't know any of this stuff was going on, all this stuff is just as a political hitch. Even if we were to say just that, I mean, just based on his appointments alone, he's a terrible manager. He's completely awful. Like I said, if he was playing fantasy football, he wouldn't even have scored a point. This Sunday, every time you're playing Eric Adams, you would win. It didn't matter. You could just put one player in the lineup and you win.
Well, He's a terrible manager and a terrible leader for the city. But for Eric Adams, I look at it like he's a brilliant leader because he put useful idiots, and I'm sure eventually we'll find out that everyone's making money out of these private contracts. The preponderance of evidence is there. At some point, we'll see that. So if we look at things, the people that in or around him, they're brilliant appointments on his behalf, not for the city, but on his behalf. I mean, look, we could almost do a roll call right now. If anyone could think of someone we forget, who's resigned? We got Miranda, we got Sheena Wright, Philip Banks, David Banks, Timothy Pearson. Am I missing anybody? There's just so many. You can't even keep up. It's insane.
Dude, I'm telling you, I'll pull up a thing a little later. I have a whole map of it. We're gonna have Tom Sullivan come on here at 9. He's gonna walk us through his platform. Tom was not endorsed by the New York City Police Benevolent Association or any of the other police unions for that matter. And it's a slap in the face. Instead, they endorsed a Democrat who supports Proposition 1, who has wholeheartedly supported every piece of anti-cop, pro-criminal legislation there's been in New York. So I don't understand it. And that goes for literally every race. So Pat Hendry has doubled down on the Pat Lynch platform. I'm sure Pat Lynch is advising in the background. I don't have any confirmation of that. But if I'm a betting man, that's what I'll bet, that somebody's doing a consulting company. There's another a political consulting company coming from the leftist Democrat that Pat Lynch is, even though he pretended to be a right-wing cop conservative cop who cared about police officers. Yeah. So we broke down recently Bo Dietl. He's got a podcast on WABC 77 WABC. It's called One Tough Podcast. I call it One Tough Podcast to listen to because it just truly is that, And he has on Scott Monroe. Scott took over the Detectives Endowment Association, and when Scott's on, he was going on this whole media tour. There was an article in the Post. He went on this whole media tour, and he said how for the first time ever, never been done before, even though it has, and they got the idea from the organization that I sat on the board of, National Coalition of Frontline Workers. Recently resigned because I want to focus more on this podcast and building out this media network. So resigned my position from them, but he says never been done before. And he sent out a poll to his members, to all detectives citywide. And the poll was, who are we going to endorse in the presidential election? And is it Donald Trump or is it Kamala Harris? I was for it, but the thing that I didn't like is that he said he was only doing it for the presidential election. And I said, either you're gonna bring your members in the political arena and you're gonna give them the choice to vote for it all the time, or don't do it any of the time. If your members are pushing you to endorse in the presidential election, this appears that you're afraid and you don't want to take the blame for it. I didn't do it. It was my guys. What do you want me to do? So the votes were due back on September 5th, 2024. Here's today, October 7th, the 1-year anniversary of the horrible massacre that occurred in Israel. Here's October 7th, a month and 2 days later, and no one knows the results of that poll. Eric, what do you think about that?
There is some argument. I think someone had put a comment here. I'm trying to find it. Comments are flying in, but someone put that unions typically support Democrats, which is true. If you look at our history when it comes to the early days of unions endorse Democrats, but that times have changed. Times have really changed, especially when you see the turn of the century, especially when it comes around the time of FDR. There was a time, I would say, you're right, that Democrats were probably more conducive for unions. But things have really changed, especially as law has changed, not just policies. And no longer do I also think of these benevolent associations or endowment associations. I think they need to change their names, because benevolent means to be a charitable, charitable and non-profitable organizations and kind gestures. Same thing with endowment. It's supposed to be, not for profit, and that's not what we see. But it's amazing how they cherry pick. That's the problem I have. Cherry pick when to have an election for endorsement, And I just think right now, because the truth is the DEA wants to support Kamala Harris in this. That's the reality. That's what I see. And they know that the results of the election will be Donald Trump. And of course, the results have not been released yet, which is more indicative of exactly what we've been saying. But again, it just goes back to cherry picking. Would they do this for the mayoral election? I highly doubt it.
No, of course they wouldn't, because, and I get it. Listen, everyone's like, oh, Democrats control New York. Democrats control New York. It's one party rule, and we need to support the Democrats. The problem is it's one party rule in New York. So you supporting the Democrats does absolutely nothing for you. And we've seen it again where Governor Kathy Hochul I think she vetoed 14 different bills for state police. One of them was to bring their retirement down from 25 years to 20 years. So she vetoes those bills in order to put pressure on Kathy Hochul. Those unions who endorsed her, by the way, they endorsed her. So you get what you put out, right? You get what you put out. So they endorsed her. PBA snuck $50,000 to her, and New York City PBA snuck $50,000. So it didn't endorse her, but that is an endorsement ultimately. But all the state police agencies endorsed Kathy Hochul. So they were putting pressure on her to sign these bills. I think they put a like a truck, like a I can't even think of what it is, a billboard truck. They put a billboard truck out in front of her office saying, like, Kathy Hochul's got to go. First of all, there's no election, right? Apparently, her office calls the PBA and says, the state PBA, and says, get that truck out of there. They take the truck out of there. They don't listen to her, and then she vetoes all the bills immediately after that. Same like she did after the PBA snuck $50,000 to the New York City PBA. So these Democrats are not friends of the police. So you using your voice and you saying, oh, they're a friend of the rank and file. This is who the rank and file endorses, has gotten you nowhere, because you've gotten no bills passed. The only bill that the New York City PBA has gotten passed that has benefited police, and it was originally vetoed by Governor Kathy Hochul. It was a no-cost bill, meaning that the state had to put no money out. And that bill was that you're allowed to take pension loans. Woo. So, well, thank you, Massa. Thank you, Master. Thank you, Master Hochul. So to do that, they snuck up $50,000. All these police unions endorsed Kathy Hochul, and she just vetoes everything. And throughout the state, we really got no friends in Albany or in the Senate or in City Council. None. I don't see any. Some. But we need, sometimes they're friendly with us. But we saw during the mandate, we didn't have a lot of friends. We saw during 2020, we didn't have a lot of friends. So we really need strong people in there. We need people that aren't beholden to that paycheck in there.
Well, the argument could also be this. So if you look back years back, Democrats and Republicans were not so far apart as they are now, right? Democrats have become democratic socialists, and Republicans have just become complete cucks in this country. They were not that far apart. There was a time where Democrats and Republicans all believed in law and order. And so the decision may have been back and forth of which policies would mostly support law and order, would support the police departments, would support pension systems. But that's not what it's come to now. Not only are these Democrats not supporting law enforcement, but they're in complete opposition. They're polarizing to law enforcement, and they actually create legislation, excuse me, that has led to the deaths of police officers. We have more line of duty police deaths right now in this country than we've ever seen before. And that's because of legislation that's been created by Democrats throughout this entire country. I just think that, I think the DA, excuse me, I think the entire police department has went woke at this point. They're trying to pander to this woke movement. And I think they're afraid to be seen as MAGA guys. If Trump wins, fine. They're okay with being seen as MAGA. Because by the time Trump gets out after 4 years, most of these old-timers, God willingly, will be out by then. But if they endorse Trump and Kamala Harris actually wins, then they're going to see themselves as a problem, and they might not have an opportunity to make money with these private contracts, which I believe they do make. I see a lot of self-serving benefit when it comes to the DEA, PBA, and all these other unions. So at this point, it should be very simple. Rumor has it that the majority have voted for Trump. We're hearing grumblings, we're hearing rumors from anonymous sources, credible sources, that 95% of the endorsement is for Trump when it comes to this particular election of endorsements, but yet they haven't released it yet. Is there going to be a recount? That's what I suspect. I suspect that they might just not ever release the information at all, because if we talk about transparency and you had an actual election, count them up and let's release the information right away. John, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, I missed you. I was looking at my phone. sorry. I was getting a message. What was the question?
No. Listen, I'm just talking that I think that the DA is that's hilarious, by the way. Sometimes I'm looking at the phone too, trying to mind these comments, and then you'll read an article, and I'm like, I have no idea what he just said. Let me figure something out here. But yeah. So, what do you think as far as, do you think the DA is wary about seen as being some type of MAGA guys?
100%. Listen, what's funny about that? I heard that part. So what's funny about that is when Hendry was running, if you remember, a lot of his photos, they had a lot of guys wearing Trump shirts, like as he was running, like that they were MAGA guys. So they tried to play to the crowd, right? And let's face it, people, the people that have life experience are usually lean more conservative. People that are in the military, people that are in law enforcement, people that have seen what this world presents usually tend to lean conservative. I was a liberal as a kid. I said it a million times. Like, I didn't like cops. I didn't like authority. When I experienced the real world, I became more conservative. I started leaning more conservative. When I bought a home, I started paying attention to where my money went. When I had kids, I started paying attention to what's going on. And I tend to lean more conservative. So police officers lean more conservative. So we're going to beat up the DEA today. They deserve it because they gaslighted their members. They went around New York making like Scott Monroe made like he was an innovator. He was doing something never been done before. And I'm going to play this video. We'll get into it. The other unions just cowered in silence. So, it's, I think, when anytime we mention the DEA or anything today, I need everyone to understand is that we're also saying the PBA, the SBA, the LBA, and the CEA is also just as cowardly, and they pull the same exact techniques as this, the same exact gaslighting. So the results of that poll is rumored that 95% of New York City detectives voted to endorse Trump. And I guess because of the results of that poll, they're not going to release it. Eric, if you think that the results of that poll showed that the majority of detectives supported Kamala Harris, do you think they would release the results of the poll?
In a New York minute, brother. Absolutely. I think those results have been released right away. We've seen that the entire department has went woke. The upper echelon of the police department, not the boots on the ground, the upper echelon of the police department pretends to be woke, right? Because we know John Shell and many other chiefs at the top of the NYPD. They're really MAGA guys at home, right? What was that saying we heard? Woke in the streets and MAGA in the sheets. That's pretty much what it is. But so goes for these union guys. But they're so self-serving, and they're looking how to financially benefit with the next buck. I think that if Kamala Harris was the elected endorsement, it would have been released right away. Just shows you what state we're at right now. People are no longer honest about anything. We just keep completely getting gaslit by the upper echelon, get gaslit by the Eric Adams administration, gaslit by these unions. I mean, they're taking your money and they're giving it to complete opposition. I get it. If every bill and proposal that was necessary for police work and benefit the members, and you're going to give your enemy money, I get it. Okay, fine. But again, John and I debunked this a long time ago when they gave Kathy Hochul money and she shot down every bill and every proposal, even Tier 2A. Everybody's been fighting, making such a big deal about Tier 2A. The fire department got no problem, but the police department is not a friend to Albany, and the police department did not get it. No union has gotten Tier 2A at all. And what is Tier 2A, right? It's evaluation of either your best 3 years or your last year. So, and is that worth $50,000? I don't even think that's worth it.
No, yeah. Mark DeMock brings up a great point. He said, how many hospital podium speeches did Lynch give that Albany legislation needs to change the law while donating to that very political party and bail reform causing havoc on cops? And let's call it what it is. It's not just bail reform, right? It's discovery reform. It's releasing your 50A. It's Prop 1. They're all in support of this, taking away parental rights. So, Puglisi, the former VP of the PBA, the guy that's on the beginning of this podcast, where he's cursing us out, whatever the hell he says. He was talking smack about us when we released that Kathy Hochul, that they snuck 50,000 to Kathy Hochul. And what he said was, he was like, these guys don't understand. We're trying to play ball. They don't understand how the political process works. Don't listen to them. We're trying to get these bills passed. They don't know what they're talking about. This is how we do it. This is how it's done. So what's being proposed now as why they're not releasing it, and this is coming from a lot of delegates, and shout out to the fine Unfiltered Fishing. This is actually coming from a lot of delegates. It's not just coming out of thin air. It's not coming out of people that aren't members, where they're saying that they're being told that they're not going to release the results of the poll because they're going to change Tier 2A to Tier 2, which means that basically, instead of you getting a retirement based upon your last year number, 50% of your last year number with overtime included, you could get a retirement based upon your best 3 years in the New York City Police Department with overtime included. So that's what they're saying. So they don't care about open borders. They don't care about your safety. They don't care what the stance on that is. They don't care that money's being funneled out of the state and out of the city left and right. They don't care about any of that. The only reason they're not going to release that poll is for one slight retirement benefit. And again, if that's where you're at, is that public safety? Are you selling out your children over Proposition 1? Yes. Are you selling out your children supporting open borders? Yes. Are you selling out your children, your career, and your own coworkers because they are going to continue to legislate to have more crime? Absolutely you are. So what's more important, a slight retirement benefit or the overall health and well-being of not only you, the entire membership of the NYPD, the entire membership of your union, and your children's future, or one retirement benefit?
So I kind of went through this before when you were lost on the phone, but before I do, I just want to let John Ranger put this comment. I think it's great. If you're not a liberal at 25, you have no heart. If you're not conservative by the age of 25, you got no brain. That's pretty good. So there's always been an age-old argument that Democrats are the better party to support unions. And there may be some truth to that if you look years past, but I don't think it applies to the state of the country where we are right now. And Democrats no longer operate as Democrats that we know in the past, right? I mean, I think even you at some point you were registered Democrat, but I think you kind of said you didn't really know why you registered Democrat at the point. But if you look at years past, I mean, Democrats before FDR were really kind of like Republicans. But at the same point, Democratic Socialist is what they are right now. I mean, they're so far to the left. I don't think they're conducive to unions. Do you think that applies to the PBA? Because the PBA is not really a union, or the DEA. They're not really unions. They're different as benevolent associations out. But do you think that applies? Do you think that the Democratic Party is better suited for unions than Republicans?
I think at this point, I think we're in uncharted waters, and I think that everything that's been done in the past has failed, glaringly failed over the last 20 years, and it needs to be upended, and a new system has to be put in place, meaning how we interact with politicians, how our unions interact with politicians, the tone that we allow in the media to be pushed in the media. No longer should law enforcement allow basically the media to dictate a scenario of what happened. Unfortunately, what's going on is we're getting a lot of these leftist progressive police leaders who are trying to control all the narrative. Now, the police isn't going to control the narrative. They have the right to give their own narrative, right? They should give their own narrative. They should advocate for their own officers and for their own standpoint. But that doesn't mean you'll control it like what we saw John Shell had said. We are going to control the narrative when they attempted to shut down this podcast and intimidate us from going on online and using our free speech. And then eventually went after the entire media. So I think, what worked in the past hasn't worked. What worked maybe 30 years prior does not work any longer. Hasn't worked in 20 years. Grunt says, well, Giuliani was our best friend, but he gave zeros twice. Best friend, though. Again, we've said it on this podcast over and over again. That zero contract, that was the best contract that the PBA has seen. That was the best contract that the PBA has seen in 20-something years. Because there were no give backs. I think overall, if I remember correctly, it was 0-0, 7-3 or something. I forget exactly what it was, but I think overall it was like a 16% increase with no give backs. So we've never seen a contract like that, because from that moment on, Lynch ran on the zeros. We'll never take zeros. We'll never take zeros. And then every raise ended up going through arbitration. Almost every raise ended up going through arbitration. So it put you guys years back, money you never had. And then on top of that, the every percentage point we paid for it out of our own thing. They took away vacation days, they took away our rights, they took away a million different things that we had. Everything were self-funded raises from that point on, all the way up until now, where they sold out your healthcare and retirement. Everybody was cheering because, the numbers are big. It's like, it's like, you moron. That's more valuable than probably the money you have, your healthcare and retirement. But it's like, it doesn't matter. We're not going to live to 65 anyway.
You're going to die the day you retire. NPP Nick 1 says, I guess there's some conversation here going on between the friends and listeners here. Thanks for making reposting that IG post about the governor vetoing our retirement bill. We supported her during her election 2 years ago, and she still didn't. Our union had a meeting with her before we gave our support. She stabbed us in the back. It's all a smokescreen. Dems do not support you. Spot on. I agree. At this point, I think there was a time in history the Democratic Party was definitely more conducive for unions. And the Democrats were supportive of unions. But things have changed, completely changed. And I don't think they're typical Democrats of what we've seen in years past, before the FDR days or even right after FDR. What we see now with Democrats are just far leftist liberals and socialists. They just don't have a new party name, but they're not really Democrats. And I think at this point, and neither is Trump your typical Republican either. That's the party. That's the party he's registered, but he's something completely different. I'm not saying that Republicans are the best thing for unions either, but when it comes to the presidential race, I think there's only one horse to pick in this race, and it's Donald Trump. Absolutely.
Yeah. And again, people saying, it doesn't even matter. Like the presidential race doesn't matter. Okay. So then why'd you talk about it? I disagree. I disagree totally, because I think that this race with the open border policy directly affects every city. I think it directly affects the safety and health and well-being of not only the members of the New York City Police Department, but also their families as well. So I totally disagree. Even as it gets down to like the healthcare you're going to receive when we're allowing millions of more people in this country, and the price of goods that you're going to pay for when we're allowing millions of people in this country that you're supporting. So I totally wholeheartedly disagree. But why go out and say you're going to do something and not do it? Before we play this video, if you guys could just do me a favor, we got 535 people in the live chat on all different platforms. If you guys could just subscribe, check the notification bell. If you're on Twitter or any other social media handle, if you could just like this stream and share it out. We get a few more people on here. We appreciate it. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining us this morning. Let's play this video and then let's get your thoughts, Eric. Here's Scott Monroe on the One Tough podcast to listen to with the phony Bodito, the Democrat, Eric Adams lover.
One Tough podcast to listen to.
Here we go.
Everything is transparent, and we work as a board. I put a lot of committees together, and one of the committees that are coming up right now is the Political Action Committee, where we're vetting all of these politicians, the Assembly and the Senate.
Good. Let's see what they're really about.
Yep. And if you believe in law enforcement, whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican, we're going to endorse you. And that's actually what I'm doing right now with the presidential poll. Never done before. I'm bringing my members, active and retired, in the political arena here with us.
I like that.
And I'm letting them vote in this poll. And it just went out today. And it's due back on September 5th on who the union should endorse for the president of the United States.
I like that a lot. That's real democracy. No,
yes.
You're not the emperor.
Nope.
You're a representative of all our members. That's great.
Correct. And I want them to weigh in on it. Now, listen, I may use it for the in 2026. We have the governor election.
Yeah.
We may use it for the mayor's election. I don't know. But in this election, I felt it was important because of the times that we're living in right now, that our members speak out and tell us how they feel.
I love it.
And I think that's very important.
Very refreshing.
First of all, did you hear the date that he gave? September 5th. I mean, it's a month. It's a month later right now. Are we kidding here? This is just more gaslighting from this union. You know what, John? I would arguably say at this point, there was a time where unions were completely necessary to enforce work and labor laws to protect members. But no longer do I think we even need unions when it comes to policing, especially with the NYPD. Maybe in some states right now, maybe if they don't have the same contracts that we have. But I think that we don't need a union right now on for any rank when it comes to the police department. And arguably, I think the answer right there is when it comes to the vaccine mandate. What did the union do to protect members from the vaccine mandate? I mean, we have people that were terminated. Speaking of the DA, Marlon Bethel, a detective, a black male, was terminated from the New York City Police Department under the behest of Mayor Eric Adams for not complying to the vaccine mandate. What did the union do to support? I'm sorry, not the union here, the Detectives Endowment Association. What did they do to support Marlon Bethel? What did the LBA do to support you, John? They didn't want to support you. They didn't even like the fact that you were asking questions. No longer do we need these unions. It's a bunch of hogwash. These are self-serving people that want to stay in power. There's financial benefit. There's political benefit. They're sitting there pretty. They're wearing suits. They're comfortable. They're doing media tours. They eat like fat rats. They take everyone's membership dues, and they do nothing to benefit the members. I don't think we need unions anymore at all. Maybe coalitions amongst police officers in different ranks, but we don't need unions.
So I put this post out again, and I said, basically, it's September, and on September 5th, we were supposed to get the results. They said they were going to do this. You clearly hear from the DEA president. I didn't make this up. Eric didn't make this up. This out of his mouth. It's important that our members have their voice, right? So I said, where's the results? Where are the results? And then once I put that out, I started getting messages from delegates and all these 95% confirmed, 95% of New York City detectives support Donald Trump. I mean, which, leaves you to wonder who the hell are the 5%. And what kind of investigative skills do they have to think that Kamala Harris would be a good president and good for this country, law enforcement, or their children, or the future of this nation? What kind of investigative skills do those people have? But that's besides the point. 95% of their membership want them to endorse Trump. So instead of doing that, it's we're just going to stick this in the shredder. So guy comes on my Instagram, Greg Big Guy. I don't know who he is. I think he's a trustee. He might be the Staten Island trustee. I'm not 100% sure. But he says this. He says, it was a survey to get the feeling of the membership. That's not what Scott said. That's not what Scott said there. So let's just clear that up. Why is everyone so obsessed with this? You threw digs when they did the survey. Now you are throwing more digs. Waiting for the results? Make no comments on any of the good that has been done over the years and continues to be done. It's always negative nonsense, pretty pathetic, and wholly unfair. I'm a loyal listener to you guys, but you and Eric, our consistent bashing is pretty tiresome. So I think that this is warranted. I totally think that the exposing the gaslighting is totally warranted. I didn't go out and say you should. I'm saying you should endorse him, but I didn't go out all over the media and say I'm going to let my membership vote on this and then hide the fact. It was like, we don't really like these results. Let's put them in the shredder. You know, I didn't do that. Your president did that. Why did he do that? So, you know, I'm like, at this point, I think it's only fair to say, why are you not endorsing him now? And what was the point? It wasn't just a feeling. What was the original point? Or is that what you guys are saying now? It's just a feeling? Because I don't believe you. Your membership doesn't believe you. I'm sure the entirety of the public that hears this and sees that post isn't going to believe you. Eric, what do you think? It was just a feeling? Like what's the feeling? Like, what are we trying to understand? For what?
So here we go with more gaslighting, trying to manipulate in semantics, which is what that response was. That's exactly what that is. So if that were true, which it's not, but let's play this game and say if that were true, then Scott Monroe would have said here, he would have said it's a survey to feel out what is conducive and what the members want, what they desire, what they see is in their best interest. And ultimately, we will use that to help us make the best decision, but ultimately we will still make the decision because we know what's best for our members. That's not what they said. What he said was we're going to put this now in the hands of our members and allow our members to be part of the election process and let them choose who's going to be endorsed based on an election. So they have not released those results. So that's a complete lie. It wasn't just a survey. And if it was a survey, again, even if he didn't say all that, then they could see you saying, hey, if it was kind of 49% Trump and 51% Kamala Harris or vice versa, then we can make the argument that now the union, their endorsements, right, may topple that over. If it's 49% Kamala Harris with the members and all the people on the board think it should be Kamala Harris, now we tip the scale. That could be another argument, but that's not what he said. We should play it again just so people hear what he says, because it's very specific what he says here, and that's just complete hogwash. Whoever made that comment, I appreciate that they support us and they listen to the podcast and a friend to the podcast, but that's just complete semantics.
Yeah, again, I don't consider this bashing at all. Like I really don't. And I the thing that I'm like harping on it is because I like this. I think instead of this nonsensical committees, like you'll hear Scott talk about this. So what these unions do is they put together committees, right? They put together political action committees, or they do it for everything. And why they do that is they have like 5 guys who they handpick, and they basically bully to vote the way they want to, or you won't be on that committee a little much longer. And you got like whatever, an extra $300 or $500 in your check, whatever it may be for each committee. And they put these committees together. And why they do that is so that the union president, like Hendry and Lynch did when they gave the $50,000, when they snuck the $50,000 to Hochul and they got caught, they said, it wasn't us. It was the political action committee. They voted on it. It's like, yeah, come on, bro. You're trying to tell me. So he talks about this political action committee. So you're putting the voice, you're putting the power of your members and the power of saying, because like, let's face it, we constantly say the problem in America, the problem in New York City is low information. It's filled with low information voters. So if you see a candidate who's backed by the DEA, the PBA, the LBA, you automatically think if you believe crime's an issue, you're going to vote for that candidate. You know, and so so by giving giving not only a donation, but more importantly, your support to that candidate, your endorsement, you're basically saying this is the candidate that supports law and order. And they're giving that to candidates that don't support law and order. And that's the major problem. And they're hiding behind this political action committee. So with Scott Monroe, what he brings out over here, and he says, I'm going to do this. I was actually like, as much as I said I liked it, the only thing that I bashed him for is because he said he wasn't going to do it going forward. I might do it for the mayor election. I might do it for the governor. I might do it for local elections. It's either you're going to give the voice and the power to your members or you're not. And that's what I said. I said, this sounds political. This sounds like gaslighting. And I was 100% right, because now we do the poll. You give it to your members. Your members vote on it. Oh, and by the way, it wasn't just the members. It was the retired members also. And that should happen in all the unions, because me and you, Eric, are still members of the LBA. We should be able to attend these meetings. I should get my emails, Lou. I shouldn't have to chase down other lieutenants who are scared of me to see if they could send me an email about what's going on in the union that I paid to be a lifetime member for. So I like this whole thing. That's why I'm so disappointed in it, because it was pure gaslighting. That's why I am bashing it now. It's not constant bashing. It's bashing when it's warranted. And this, I believe, is warranted. I believe it's wholeheartedly warranted, because this should be something that every union should model after. That should be a true democracy. It shouldn't be a bunch of Mo's from Long Island controlling your union. Like, yeah, Mo, go to my brother-in-law who's going to give you the insurance policy. Go to my brother-in-law who's the lawyer who's terrible, who's going to tell you, what are you going to do, kid? Just take the hit. Like, we got to get out of this model that's been going on, because it hasn't worked. And like you said, Eric, it's just pure, utter gaslighting. And again, we saw during the mandate, they were absolutely nowhere. And after the mandate, you got a guy like Marlon Bethel still terminated non-disciplinary, and this guy will pretend he doesn't exist. And that's my problem. That's my big problem with all of this. It's like, if you were doing good things, I could appreciate it, but you're not. And another point of note just about the unions is the medical expenses. I believe it's funded $850,000 quarterly in New York City for widows, for police officer widows and firefighter widows, people who were killed in the line of duty. That money hasn't been funded. I mean, it's disgraceful. And I think the unions are doing a good job of bringing that to the media. But then you're going to go out and endorse and fund the same candidates that aren't ensuring that these widows are protected. And that's my problem. So let's listen to it again. And then, Eric, highlight out what you think again. Let's listen to it one more time.
Thing. Everything is transparent, and we work as a board. I put a lot of committees together, and one of the committees that are coming up right now is the Political Action Committee, where we're vetting all of these politicians, the Assembly and the Senate.
Good. Let's see what they're really about.
Yep. And if you believe in law enforcement, whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican, we're going to endorse you. And that's actually what I'm doing right now with the presidential poll. Never done before. I'm bringing my members, active and retired, in the political arena here with us.
I like that.
And I'm letting them vote in this poll. And it just went out today. And it's due back on September 5th on who the union should endorse for the president of the United States.
I like that a lot. That's real democracy. No,
yes.
You're not the emperor.
Nope.
You're representative of all our members. That's great.
Correct. And I want them to weigh in on it. I may use it for the in 2026. We have the governor election.
Yeah.
We may use it for the mayor's election. I don't know. But in this election, I felt it was important, because of the times that we're living in right now, that our members speak out and tell us how they feel.
I love it.
And I think that's very important.
Very refreshing.
So Bo Dietl says here, oh, that's great. That's democracy. There's no democracy in this. There's no democracy when it comes to these unions. It's a one-sided coin. These unions make decisions without the basis of their members' votes. They don't care what their members think. It's what's beneficial to the board. It's beneficial to the union itself. And when I say the union itself, it's the people at the top of the union. It's the trustees, the board. That's what this is about. He didn't say anything about a survey. He said that it's never been done before, that our members are going to vote. Doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. We're going to vote for the candidate that is best for our members. And that's not what's going on here. So, I always say opposition meets opportunity. I appreciate Greg, big guy, whoever it is. I appreciate being a friend to the podcast. I appreciate your opinion. We're not going to get mad at you, but I don't agree. Just listen to this again. Listen to what Scott Monroe is saying here. Scott Monroe is saying that the members are going to have their vote. They're going to endorse who they decide based on the membership. It doesn't matter about Democrat. It doesn't matter about Republican. It matters on the membership vote. This goes back to why I've been saying I really don't think we need unions anymore. There was a time where we needed unions. We needed unions to protect members, but we have a lot of those protections in place. And even with the vaccine mandate, the unions were toothless when it came to John McCary, when it came to Marlon Bethel, when it came to many others. They were toothless. They were toothless lions at this point, and they still are. We hear Henry barking with no bite. At the same time, look at this past election when it comes to the PBA. Look at this past election with Pat Hendry. And does anybody know who his opponent was? Probably not, because there really was no opponent. The opponent was Corey Grable. But at the same token, most people probably don't even know who the opponent was, because it was pretty much a one-sided election where union delegates were pretty much pushed out of it and had no opportunity to run in this. It was a complete fraud, this election. Just look at it on the face of it. So do we need unions anymore? I don't think so. Again, I think we should start moving to maybe some coalitions amongst members of the police department. I don't think we even need to split it up as far as unions in different ranks. No longer do we have to have these board members staying there till they're 63 years old, bleeding the pension system. I think that we can go down to coalitions. It's not necessary. If someone's in a jam or a pickle, they're going to get their own representation. All the health benefits are afforded to you by a contract. Dental and prescription, you can get a plan that's pretty affordable on a monthly basis. So and you can form a coalition together, and other amenities can be afforded to you. I don't see it any longer. Again, completely polarizing to what Greg Big Guy had said. He said exactly that. The members will have the opportunity. But again, they really don't want their opinion. No one wants anyone's opinion. No one can handle criticism anymore. That's why they say that we're bashing, John. They say we're bashing because we're giving our opinion, and our opinion is right. So they don't want to hear it. It's almost like white noise. They want to shut it out. They don't want to hear it because we tell the truth.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is we're removing our voice by just throwing our support behind Democrats or ignoring the people who actually support us. We're just giving away our voice. Grunt says the zero contract is the reason the NYPD is the lowest paid in the nation. Wholeheartedly disagree on that statement. The reason that the NYPD was the lowest paid police department in the nation was because of Pat Lynch's strategy of going to arbitration and not taking zeros, by keeping the NYPD out of contract for periods of 5 years, 6 years. That is the reason you're the lowest paid. They were the lowest paid. It's because we didn't keep up with the times. And I believe, again, that was, if you look at that strategy, it was either really horrible, like the worst form of negotiation possible, like that this person should never be in charge of negotiating anything, and that entire board should never be in charge of negotiating, or it was done intentionally and working with the city to save the city money. Same thing with the mandate. I consistently say that mandate had nothing to do with a shot. It had everything to do with layoffs. Those were illegal layoffs. I think the strategy of arbitration was to keep officers out of pay, out of getting higher raises, save the city millions over those years. Millions and millions of dollars. And then it actually hurts you later on in your retirement when you think about you were out of contract for 6 years. That's 6 years where you didn't have a raise, 6 years of less money going into your ITHP. That's 6 years of your money not going into the pension, not getting your ITHP, your 50% additional. That actually hurt officers. And the Pat Lynch administration was the worst administration when it came to financially for NYPD officers, and it was the arbitration strategy that those 2 years of zeros weren't it. There should have been some more zeros that Pat Lynch took to settle those contracts, and you guys would have still been on par with the rest of the country. We weren't because of him, because of that strategy. It's a failed strategy. Currently, the SBA is in that same failed strategy, and they're hurting the retirement of their members. They're hurting the health and welfare of their members. The more years that go by, is the less money that they'll get. The money's more valuable upfront than it is later on. So I think those are terrible. And then, Tabitha said he probably don't want the police to look bad. New York is a predominantly Democrat community. Probably Kamala Harris is likely to win. And listen, I understand that. I'm not stupid. I understand that New York is one party control, but you have to understand you're giving away your voice. You're giving away your power. If you want the endorsement of my members, because this is how they feel, these are the things you need to do so I could go back to my members and I could advocate for you. These are the things I need you to do. I need these bills passed. I need you to be strong on this. I need you to reinstate Marlon Bethel. I need you to do these things, and I'll get behind you wholeheartedly. If not, it's fine. I'm going to go out in the media, and I'm going to work directly against you, and I'm going to let the American public and the New York City public know that you do not support the rank and file of the NYPD. You do not support the rank and file of the detectives on the ground or the police officers or lieutenants or the captains. And I'm going to endorse your candidate. So you make the decision. Keep your power. What we're doing here is, New York's Democrats. So we're just going to, please be nice to me. Here's my money and here's my endorsement. Please be nice to me. That's the strategy currently.
Well, absolutely. An endorsement is so important, right? What exactly is an endorsement? Sometimes we overlook what actually is an endorsement. An endorsement is public support, public approval for a candidate. So if we're going to publicly support you, especially with the NYPD unions are the second largest unions next to the FOP in this entire country. So you're getting support from the largest unions in this country publicly. So there has to be a price tag for it. You have to support the members as well. If you're going to get that endorsement, right, because other people are going to get behind, there are plenty of people who are going to say, well, I am a conservative, but if the police department is going to get behind this candidate, and I see public safety just completely deteriorated in my community, if you live in New York City or New York State, you might say, you know what? I'm going to get behind and I'll support the same candidate, because if the police department sees that this person is the most suitable and fit for public safety, then I'll get behind this candidate also. They don't realize how heavily weighed that endorsement is. So I think we overlook that sometimes. And again, John, we have to go back to the point that you said earlier, which I want to piggyback, and I agree with you. It was Scott Monroe that decided to have this election process. We're weighing in on that ideal, and we both liked it. But what we'd like to see, is this going to be all or none? Is this just a one-time thing because you're trying to eradicate from this actual election? Or is this going to be something that happens every election, and you now allow your members to be part of the political process and the support endorsements a part of the public process? And I think that's what's important to note here.
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, I think you could settle all of this. Just let's see the results, because if we don't, I'm gonna keep posting about it every couple of days. I mean, like, I think you need some bad press, because whether you're gonna do the endorsement or not, I think the public now. You went out in the public and said you were gonna do this poll. You went on news, said you were gonna do this poll. You went to the New York Post, told them you were gonna do this poll. You went on One Tough podcast to listen to and said you were gonna do this poll. So release the results. Let everybody see what the Detectives Endowment Association, your members actually want. If you're not going to do the endorsement, I mean, it'll show how cowardly you are. It'll show how you truly don't care about the feelings of your members. I mean, to say we're throwing it out as a feeler, I mean, that's just for what? For what? For what? What was the feeler for? What were you going to do with that information? And, I completely contradicts what was said on the show. So yeah, I'm saying right now, release the results. Or I guess there'll be some more bashing if you want to consider that. I just call it more of shining a light on the fact that you continue, these unions gaslight their members and don't care about the voice of their members, nor give a voice to their members, and actually give away. They actually give away their power, and they give away their voice. We're gonna bring up in a few minutes. We'll let him get ready right now. He's in the backstage, but Tom Sullivan's gonna come up. Tom's running for Assembly District 23 in Queens. He is a pro law enforcement candidate. He's a retired military colonel, small business owner. He's someone that obviously does not need to be running for Assembly District 23. He has there's no gain for him. He doesn't need the money. There's no gain whatsoever for Tom Sullivan. He's doing this because he wants to save the country. He wants to save New York. Tom, your camera isn't up. If you hear me, if you could just get your camera going and unmute your mic. All right. So at this time, I'd just like to welcome to the stage, ladies and gentlemen, Thomas P. Sullivan, Colonel, retired Thomas P. Sullivan.
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Hey, Tom, how you doing, sir?
Pleasure. Yeah,
You know, I always salute you.
We're doing great.
Outstanding. How's everything going? So listen, it's so happy to have you here. You know, we always we're watching you and supporting you, and let's just jump right into it. We're talking about unions. How do you feel about the unions supporting your opposition?
So I use the word, it's very discouraging. And, you know, for your listeners out there, right, we call them the rank and file and the officers on the streets. My father was a New York City detective. My eldest brother, a Secret Service agent. Another brother, Port Authority officer. Another brother, NYPD, and now there's I think 5 nieces and nephews that are NYPD. And so it was very discouraging coming from a law enforcement family who grew up in a law enforcement family and understood the importance of public safety from the standpoint of law and order, not to get their endorsement. Politically speaking, I think they did what was politically convenient. Here in New York City, we know how it goes with a city council that is overwhelmingly Democratic. We have a state assembly that has a supermajority Democrats and a state Senate that is a supermajority Democrat and a Democrat governor. So politically speaking, I think they went what was convenient and possibly easy. But as a retired colonel, the right answer is not always easy. It's a difficult choice, difficult decision. You have to stand on your principles and what you believe in. And whether it's no cash bail or clean slate or something near and dear to the NYPD is qualified immunity. Although a city issue, as a state representative, I would certainly do everything I could from my position to ensure that qualified immunity is reinstored for our NYPD sisters and brothers. And it's done them a great harm. It's put them in danger. It's put the proverbial handcuffs on our law enforcement community out there on the street. Our elected officials, including Stacey Pfeffer Amato, enjoy qualified immunity. And just to reiterate what that is, you know, if you're doing your duty as you were trained, given the resources you were provided, the equipment, that you could not be held personally liable, your pension, your house, your savings. But our elected officials enjoy that protection, but not our NYPD. How eager would you be to respond to the scene? How eager would you be to, in a face-to-face, force-on-force interaction with somebody in the community who is bigger than you, stronger than you, perhaps on some sort of drug? And I've seen this personally, what a person on cocaine can do. And they feel no pain, they feel no fear, and you have a law enforcement officer that's supposed to somehow abide by these restrictions. And it never plays well out on video. We've seen that before. And I'm not going to get into too many details, but a very close individual to my family, which I just mentioned, was bitten as if they were bitten like a shark. The damage that was done to this individual's body was disgusting and something they will cause them concern for the foreseeable future. You know, the damage was so bad, we're talking blood and saliva, and that individual who bit this person so close to me is protected. right? Somehow now this individual has to worry about, taking blood tests every couple of weeks, taking certain injections and medications to ward off. This is what our officers on the streets are enduring every day. We need to give them the support politically, legislatively, and certainly getting into the next topic is I find it absolutely outrageous that we found $2.4 billion in the budget for illegal migrants, but the pay raises for the NYPD are not competitive with that in Nassau, Suffolk County, or the state police officers. That money could have been used for more training. That money could have been used for updated equipment. That money could have been used for more police officers. I would like to propose as a state legislator that our police not have to work as much in overtime, but still keep, a competitive salary to compensate them and keep them from working the overtime. I am very well familiar with this. Again, I watch my nieces and nephews, right? They are not making the family christenings. They are not making the family baptisms. They're not making the family birthday parties. Why? Because they're out there on the streets protecting us and, trying to make a living. And one of the things I'd like that President Trump has offered is, and I think it's a fantastic out-of-the-box idea, is not taxing overtime. How good would that be? That is a real incentive. That is a real benefit because as you gentlemen know, when you work the overtime, you get taxed at even higher rate for bumping you up to higher income tax brackets. Now you're working a hell of a lot more for marginally less. So I fully support that idea, especially when it comes to public safety.
Yeah. So, Tom, can you tell us a little bit about your platform versus your opponent's platform? A couple of things that I think that the unions consistently say is that, we don't care about the well-being of anything other than the health and wellness and the pay of our members, which is a horrible statement to make from people who are in the public safety realm. I think that's a terrible statement and a terrible take on things. And my thing is things of support of open border policy, support of legislation like Prop 1, where we remove parental rights. I think that directly harms their members and their families, especially if in support of open borders and giving necessary funding, taking that away from American hardworking American families and giving it to illegal immigrants. I think that endangers the members, and I think that it actually endangers not only the members but their family as well, and overall their health, safety, and well-being. Could you just tell us your take on open borders and your take on Prop 1 and just what's the difference between you and your opponent that you see in your eyes?
Sure. So, law and order wise and on the border, right? Everything starts with a policy, and your state legislators are the ones who place these policies and laws in place. And when the governor, Kathy Hochul, right? She extended a sanctuary state executive order that was put in place by the previous Governor Cuomo. So she extended that. And the state legislature, the Senate, and the Assembly supported that. My opponent did not speak out against that. I am firmly against this sanctuary state policy. This is, it's an incentive for migrants to come at a greater number than they are. And the fact that we're putting migrants, which is not humane, in tents on old runways, and we have winter coming on us again, is not compassionate or humane. And it shows one thing for sure, that New York State, the United States government, does not have the resources, the finances to handle this migration of this magnitude. So my opponent supported that, and she may say that she does not, but she voted for a bill for $2.4 million that put illegal migrants above veterans, the elderly, the homeless, and the mentally ill combined. More resources have gone towards illegal immigration than those four things I just stated. And I could not support that. I would not bury that in the budget like my opponent does. And how would you like, as a police officer? Listen, I can't manage. I've had very few physical engagements in my life, but for a police officer to go out there and wonder, like Jonathan Diller in our district, in the 23rd Assembly District, to go out there and approach a car and wind up dealing with somebody, if I understand correctly, for the 7th time on violent crimes. And it was the 8th time that wound up costing the life of a New York City police officer. That is unacceptable. It's bad enough you have to go out there and risk your life, risk injury once, but it's a slap in the face to the rank and file to have to do it an 8th time. So Officer Diller may not have been the one to arrest this individual the 7 previous times, but he was the unfortunate victim of an individual that's part of the no cash bail system and part of these weak laws. When I go to these community council meetings, which are at the precincts, the 101st, the 100th, the 106th, and the 102nd, not exactly in my district, but I go there because it's right on the fringe and I still want to hear what they have to say. They're exhausted. They're doing their job. And I'll tell you one thing, they're acting so professionally and they're biting their tongues. But I can see it, I can sense it. And when I talk to them privately, they're very discouraged, very disheartened. And you know, look, they're being professional. It's not their place to speak out publicly, especially in uniform. So I respect them for that. But I don't know, you know, we're at a breaking point, and I think we've been there for a while. We see police officers. My father loved the job. My father loved the job. And even when it came time, I took the test. My father, you know, asked me to think more cautiously about it because it wasn't the police department that he faced the same dangers. Don't get me wrong, but the support was there for him from the political leaders, from the leadership in the police department, and even quite a few years ago, but certainly today, does not feel that's the case. And, you know, as a soldier, I know it's critical when you're out there in the dark and you're making split-second decisions that could cost somebody their life, that the last thing you want to worry about is being criticized or being held legally responsible for your actions. And I would make a plea to you on this platform right now, to the rank and file, that when they go to the ballot box, you know, starting October 26th, all the way through to November 5th, that they think about who they're supporting. So my family, as I mentioned, is a law enforcement family at the federal, the state, and the city level. I served my country. Another brother served 30 years in the military. So just so you know, there's 7 of us. That's why I keep mentioning. There's 7 Sullivan boys, and my father. This is what we stand for, and that's my stance. And my opponent may say certain things, but certainly doesn't vote that way.
I mean, Tom, you know I have the utmost respect for you. We're both veterans, both had a life of service. You come from a deity of service, of law enforcement and military, and I can't thank you enough having a family of service. SP makes a comment here. Smash that like button. Please smash that like button. Get the word out. Tom Sullivan, he supports law enforcement. It's so disturbing at this point that the union is in complete opposition. And again, I think it's brilliant what you said, that's politically convenient. It's politically convenient for the board itself, not for the members. And everything that you're saying here, it's common sense, and it supports law enforcement. And in order to have public safety, we have to support our law enforcement. You know, I love everything that you're saying. Of course, you talk about the amenities that entice police officers, the overtime, which is great, not being taxed. I read a great book called Tax-Free Wealth, and I learned a lot about the tax structure, and I think that would be fantastic, especially when you're working overtime and you're working these grudging hours, and it just really impedes on your paycheck because you're now in another tax bracket. So, of course, we want the members out there to get along with their unions, of course, because it's beneficial for them. But at the same time, that they have to be able to be critical thinkers and actually listen to your message here, and not always just support what the union says. They have to support what's in their best interest. Because right now, the unions, unfortunately, are not supporting the best interest of the members. They're supporting the best interest of themselves. I believe it's very self-serving. So if you do get elected, what would you be willing to sit down with the unions and try to create what's best for the police officers? I mean, I think you would, but would you be willing to sit down with the unions and, of course, discuss some of the issues? And would you be willing to discuss the vaccine mandate and how hopefully that never happens again?
So the obvious answer is yes. You know, that's the adult conversations, and we may not agree on everything. But, you know, I completed the PBA survey. It must have been about 143 questions long, perhaps. I don't know why that number sticks in my head. But I took the time to fill it out, identify myself, talk about myself, who I was and what my platform would be. And I didn't even get a phone call to appear before them. I have in the past. And I get the same answer. We like you. We like your background. But, you know, we have to do this. So you certainly mentioned something real important. What I ask, again, is listen to your unions, right? Listen to what they have to say, but also do a little bit of work yourself. Don't go blindly into the ballot box, and you know, vet your candidates. Take a little time, and this is like an opportunity for me here today, which I'm appreciative. It gives me a platform to appeal to the rank and file, and you have a choice. There's no, you know, starting October 26th through November 5th, you do have a choice, number one, and that you have a viable choice that will support law enforcement in policy, not only by his words, but in policy. I'm sorry, John, I didn't get you.
Oh, thanks. You know, we talk a lot about politics in New York on the show, and we always say, like, there's not a lot of support for Republicans, and that's kind of the messaging that we get. I'm getting a question on here.
That's because there's no Republicans.
Well, that's I disagree. I mean, the state's a red state. The city, I mean, when I grew up in Southern Brooklyn and Staten Island, and it's solid red. And there's parts of Queens where you're from that are red. Middle Village. There's parts of them that are very red. So there are a lot of conservatives, and I think there is a huge shift happening throughout the city. But one question coming in from a retired member of ESU, he asked, the Republican Assembly Campaign Committee, did they help you at all? Did they help you, like, fundraise, get boots on the ground, anything around there?
They absolutely did. As a candidate, you know, we understand when we come into this environment that it's expected that you build a team, that you raise some funds to support that team and operate a campaign. Last year, we lost by 15 votes after 54 days of court appearances and Very discouraging to have the election determined in the courts when you fought so hard. So my point is, I've proven to the Republican Assembly Action Committee that I'm a viable candidate, that I will be back. And for me to come that close to an incumbent whose mother held the seat for 28 years, by the way. So we're talking well over 36 years of the same family in the same assembly district. For me to eventually lose by 15 with no support, I should say very little support, except for, friends, neighbors, family. But we now have the full support. As a matter of fact, I'll be getting on a phone call with them in about 40 minutes. And we do this on Mondays. They've provided me with some institutional knowledge. They've provided me with some boots on the ground. We've proven to them that we're a legitimate campaign, a legitimate candidate, and we have the best interest of the party, the city, and the state. And they have proven that by their support. So I'm very grateful, and that's a great question. And, they deserve some recognition for that. And it was actually a retired Army Reserve soldier who made that connection and got them engaged with me this time around.
Hey, Tom, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for such a life of service. And before we let you go, I know you got a busy day pounding the pavement. I want to say thank you for coming on here. We support you. And you see our friends and listeners, if you have an opportunity to see some of the comments, they support you also.
I did.
So obviously, I'm pretty confident of what your answer would be. But I just want to ask you with this one question before you go today. So we spoke about qualified immunity and how you support qualified immunity for law enforcement, because common sense, you see the correlation for law enforcement to have to incentivize them from doing their job to be protected, which correlates to public safety. So I just would like you to speak real quick. What are your thoughts on this potential movement and proposal for police officers having to get their own personalized insurance to protect themselves doing the job? What do you think? Because John and I have made this argument. Who's actually going to insure police officers anyway? It's just too convoluted. But what are your thoughts on that? I just want to hear that, because you spoke about qualified immunity.
Absolutely opposed, and it's an absurd idea, because here's why. Just like when you have a homeowners or any other policy, and I'm a homeowner, and when you have a policy out there and you're protected, and somebody feels you harm them, they're going to go and the lawyer is going to look at that policy. Okay, he's got a $500,000 policy. Let's take him to court for $1 million. Eventually, we'll settle for $500,000. And we're all going to pay for it. It's absurd to have individual insurance and throw it on the back of a government employee. Okay, absurd.
No, appreciate it, Tom. So Tom,
we agree.
Hey, just one quick. I saw a question pop out about a debate, and so typically in a race like this, it would be up to the. There we go. Yeah, Mickey McMurphy. We went out there, and the local paper, right? I could say yes or no, but I can challenge, and it looks good on social media. And when I was contacted by the local paper, who would run the debate, right? Because it's either a media outlet, TV, or, radio, or a paper organization. And so in our district, that major newspaper, The Wave, they proposed a date, they proposed a location. I accepted. She did not.
Wow. So That's it. When there's no debate, I mean, you know why she doesn't want to debate. I mean, that's another thing that needs to change in the whole electoral process, where candidates actually even have the ability to not debate. That's ridiculous. You know, barring any exigent circumstances, candidates should have to be public facing and debate. That's absolutely crazy. So yeah, thank you for answering that, and thank you for joining us today. For those of you that are on, a couple of you asking links to Tom's campaign. In every episode we've done in the last few months, if you look in the notes, if you look in the notes of YouTube, Apple, Spotify, you'll see all of Tom's social media links as well as his campaign where you could donate. And again, like we said, it's bigger than you just going out and voting that day. All the stuff that's happening, we need platforms like this to get shared. We need interviews like this, candidates to get shared. So if you don't live in Assembly District 23 in Queens, but you know people that do, you should be telling them vote Tom Sullivan.
That's right.
You should, and because clearly Tom Sullivan has the support. If we put a poll out throughout the unions, Tom Sullivan would have the support of the rank and file of the NYPD. The union endorsements no longer matter. The rank and file, we're seeing that happen time and time again. Tom, any last words before we let you go?
Yeah, John, I just want to build on what you just said. I ended a speech the other night at a campaign rally that featured Nancy Mace, the congresswoman from South Carolina, and Vincent Curatola, from actor, star of The Sopranos. And it was a great night, but I ended the night with saying this. If you know somebody that lives in Howard Beach, Ozone Park, Lindenwood, Hamilton Beach, Broad Channel, the Rockaway Peninsula, maybe they're a friend, family, coworker, I ask that you make that personal phone call, that endorsement, because, you could see an ad from Tom Sullivan. It's going to say all great things about Tom Sullivan. You can hear me speak, and I can knock on doors, and all very helpful. And I can get a big endorsement like Nancy Mace. But nothing is more powerful and more important than that brother, sister, fireman, policeman, somebody who served this city, call their friend, cousin, peer in one of those areas I just described and tell them to vote for Tom Sullivan. And I would be grateful for that.
Hey, Tom, I just want to say thank you, Colonel. Thank you for your service. I have a high regard for you, being a fellow service member. Thank you so much for a life of service, because you could be on a beach chair right now. You don't have to be doing this. Our friends and listeners understand that, and they can see that you speak from the heart, and that you're congenial, and that your message is genuine. So thank you so much for coming on here, taking the time out. I know you pounded the pavement. Please, we'll stay in contact with you, and we support you, and we hope to see you again.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. You guys have a great day, and be safe out there.
All right, Tom. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Take care. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the great and powerful Tom Sullivan. So like we said, if you have it in your heart, please get out there, donate to Tom's campaign. But more importantly than the money is your voice, is sharing that. If you could share that to 5 people that live in Rockaway or any of the places listed, that's so much more valuable than the money. The votes are what count. We need people out there. So let's shift gears a little bit. I think we beat up the DEA enough. I think we beat up the unions enough. Let's shift gears. This was hot and heavy. This comes in yesterday. And after an NYPD sergeant in internal affairs reported finding a half-empty bottle of liquor in his captain's car, bosses demoted him. He was closely watched, berated, and told he needed permission to use the toilet, his lawsuit claims. So let's get into that. What's your initial thoughts when you just see this report initially, Eric? What are you thinking?
Well, let's be honest, right? The whole thing looks stupid, right? I mean, if you found a bottle of liquor in the car and you actually went and reported it, I mean, it's stupid. It's completely idiotic. But what does it reflect? It shows you the state of what's going on with the internal affairs, right? Because, I put it out and I said, listen, I think it's stupid that they even got to this point. There couldn't be something in-house and just say, hey, listen, hey, you had a bottle in the car. Maybe you want to take care of that. But if that's true, it does show the level of distrust what's going on in internal affairs right now. And it also highlights the fact that internal affairs is no longer an organization that's meant to investigate to alleviate corruption. It's an internal entity that's meant to protect the upper echelon of the police department. Because if this is true that he just made an allegation about this, which is really stupid, but the arm of the police department came down on him and he got demoted because taking any action against the upper echelon of the police department. So that's what I see right now. Rich Raggio, or Rojo, if I'm saying it right, I apologize, or wrong, I apologize. Friend listed a podcast, $20. Great show, guys, and good luck to Tom Sullivan. Thank you so much. Listen, Tom's a great guy, man. He's an older gentleman. He's got a life of service, a deity of law enforcement, a deity of military. He could be sitting on a beach right now enjoying himself, but he wants to help law enforcement. He said to himself, it's a calling. Like, he had to do this. And that's the kind of people that we want in service. Again, you have to sit there and say to yourself, I know we switch gears, but I just want to say with that comment, you have to say to yourself, wow, how did the PBA actually endorse the opposition? How did the PBA not endorse a common sense candidate who actually supports qualified immunity, who thinks, I mean, that's why I just want to ask questions that really based towards law enforcement, who thinks the idea of getting your own insurance is absurd. But the candidate doesn't think that. The candidate is complete opposition. It's not that we have two candidates where the rubber meets the road and we have to decide which one is ultimately the best and they both support law enforcement. No, one supports law enforcement and one is completely polarized. He wants to hurt your profession and defund you and make it impossible for you to do your job. So again, I think, listen, when we're going back to this internal affairs thing, John, I think this highlights that the Internal Affairs Bureau cannot be trusted. It needs to be outsourced. It needs to be an independent watchdog. It's not there to investigate. It's there to protect the upper echelon. That's it. That's the way I see it.
I wouldn't disagree with you with that one at all. So I wouldn't disagree with you with that at all. I mean, that's exactly what we see. So would I report a bottle of alcohol in my captain's car? All right, a couple of things. One, it's a mandatory must report as per NYPD patrol guide. But a lot of things are mandatory must report in the patrol guide. Two, the kids in IAB. So there's a different feel and atmosphere in IAB where everyone's out to get you, constantly watching your back, constantly feel like because you are handling sensitive information that you would be it's more likely for you to try to be discredited, for IAB to try to discredit you. I think, we have Sergeant Stephen Lee on here. He could speak to that. We're going to have him on. Actually, Steve, I'll reach out to you after the show. We'll schedule a date. We have some politicians coming on this week, but let's get that interview done. Maybe we don't do the live. We'll just do an interview, all of us, me, you, and Eric. But there's a lot of problems in IAB, right? So it's a mandatory must report. We know that the police department consistently does what's known as integrity tests, where they will test you, right? They'll send you a test. They'll put stuff in your car, drugs, property, to ensure that you're searching the vehicle and that you're properly documenting when you find things. Now, I'm going to say, me personally, if my captain, my CO, my commanding officer gave me their car and there was a bottle of alcohol in there, I'm not going to report it. And if I get caught with my pants down, I get caught with my pants down. And that's because it could be for numerous reasons. I mean, you're at work. I don't know, like, if there's a scenario, she just got promoted, she just got assigned there. I don't know the scenarios, but often people give bottles of alcohol to you as a courtesy, right? Like, your friends on the job, right? Like, oh, John, you just got promoted. Here, I haven't seen you. Boom. What do you do? You're going to take it home. What am I going to throw in the car? Oh my God, he brought alcohol into a police facility. My friend who I grew up with, who I know since I'm 12 years old, gave me a bottle of alcohol. Now, if my captain's walking in drunk every day, I mean, that's a total different story, but I'm probably not going to report that. You can say what you want about it. I think what Eric said is true. I'd be like, yo, well, what's up? Like, you have alcohol in your car. Like, what are you doing? Like, don't put me in that scenario again. Or I just wouldn't say anything at all. I don't know. So I don't think I would report it. I don't. It depends on who the captain is, though. Maybe she's tested them before, and like I don't know the scenario. Like I don't know the scenario. I don't know the feeling. I don't know the captain. But if it's like I've had issues with commanding officers, but not that I hated them. Any commanding officer I ever worked for, if they had a bottle of alcohol in the car, I wouldn't have seen it. I don't think, like, if the guy's not driving around drunk or showing up to work drunk and sleeping, I'm not reporting it. I don't know. What about you, Eric?
Well, I think there's 100 scenarios with this, and you brought up a good point, right? The environment in internal affairs is much different than when you're in a precinct. I was in housing, and I saw, based on my anecdotal experience, if I was in my captain's car, my commanding officer, now rules were made to be broken. Now, you're right. Listen, if there's corruption, I'm reporting corruption. If someone's corrupt, I don't want corrupt police officers. But at the same time, even with the police department, unless it's changed, what I remember was it's a B command discipline, right? Which means you can lose up to 10 vacation days. So if I have a commanding officer who's a total alcoholic, who's a drunk, that's something different. That's someone we don't want to have alcohol in the car. They may have another problem. They may go wrap someone around a pole. But hopefully if they're a commanding officer, they're not going to be an alcoholic. I mean, to be able to carry on that job day in and day out. If I see a bottle in the car, I'm not going to report it. Absolutely not. I'd probably just take a plastic bag, put it in a plastic bag, and be like, hey, boss, listen, you left something in the car. I just wanted to give you this so you can, put it away. But no, I'm not going to report that. That's why I think this is completely idiotic. But you do make a great point. Internal affairs is a complete different animal. But no, I'm not reporting that at all. It might just be a quick conversation. But for this sergeant to actually report it, to me, it says there must be things going on behind the scene. There must be other things going on for him to actually get to that point. So without context, we really don't know. But I think there must be other stuff going on.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Patrick Donahue. Thanks to John and Eric for being truly transparent and not just saying they will be. Follow the money, donate a $9.99 to the podcast. Pat, thanks. We really appreciate it. Again, it's a self-funded podcast. We appreciate anything that you guys give. More importantly than the money, though, I just appreciate you guys spending the morning with us, having coffee with us, and chatting. I think that that's more invaluable than anything else that could happen. So yeah, I agree with you. I think you got to take it into consideration. The kid's in IEB. He's scared. I could see both sides of the coin. And guys are getting hammered now. They're getting hammered for nonsense. I think this administration, particularly in IAB, where the chief, who Miguel Iglesias, who we also have an internal affairs complaint against. He's been known, and what's been said is that he is doubling down on the minor stuff. He's bombarding IAB with nonsensical investigations. Is he doing it because he's a poor manager? Or is he doing it because he wants to keep their eyes on small things and away from the big things? I don't know. I'll say the latter if I had to guess. I mean, that would be my opinion. But now let's put the shoe on the other foot. So all right, we wouldn't report it, but it does violate protocol. You are an IAB, which is supposedly the integrity arm of the NYPD. And now you're the captain. You're the captain. I see Eric. He's like, oh, you just had a kid. You just bought a house, whatever it is. He gives me a bottle of alcohol. I throw it in the car. I'm probably not going to give anybody my car to wash that day. I'm probably just going to wash the car myself. But if I did, and I give somebody the car and they report that I have a bottle of alcohol in the car, I'm probably going to make fun of them, but I'm definitely going to make fun of them, but I don't think I'm going to really target them either, because ultimately I violated the rule. Ultimately, I wasn't supposed to have in the car. I had it in the car. I put them in a bad spot. I would chalk it up as that I kind of messed up. I kind of put that scenario, and I could see where he's coming from. Now, I might not do the person any favors, because I'm like, you could have looked out for me. So maybe I don't look out for you in the future, but I'm not going to target you. And I know myself, I probably still would look out for them, just because I'm just not a vindictive person. I'm just not. What about you, Eric? Do you think that you would go after them.
No, absolutely not. I'm not a grudgeful person. If I was a grudgeful person, I would go after Juju, Kaz, and Shell. I don't, I don't care when people come at me. I'm not a grudgeful person at all. I don't take anything personal. If that happened to me, I would blame myself. Like, all right, I'm a dumb idiot. I left in the car. I put this person in a bad spot. I got to take what comes with it. But at the same token, I got to talk about my own experience. I compare things to my own experience. I've gotten plenty of bottles as gifts. Rafael Martinez, thank you so much. $20. Banks resigned. Yup, outstanding. John won the bet. Thank God I didn't bet my beard on it. But John won the bet. He said Banks. I had said Ingrid. But yeah, I listen, I got plenty of bottles as gifts during Christmas time, and I would put it in my car. But what's different, I wasn't a captain. I was a lieutenant. I had my personal car. I put it in the car, and I drive it home. Yeah, there are rules. There's a difference between rules and law, right? Sometimes I say that rules were made to be broken. Sometimes you have to break rules. There are exceptions. We don't break the law, but sometimes there are exceptions. No, I would not report it. And if someone report it, I would laugh. I'm like, really? You report that? You're an idiot. At least I would put, and now I'd make note. I know who I'm dealing with. But the same token, I've always said, this is why this is a flawed organization, because people should not be scared and terrified at work. It should be an environment where people feel that they can be critical thinkers and think outside the box. But we create this environment where it's such micromanagement on the boots on the ground at the low level ranks that they're terrified that they make stupid decisions. Because a common sense person would say, okay, there's a bottle in here. Obviously, it was probably a gift or something. Tell the cat, hey, listen, when you get a chance, like I said, put it in a bag and say, hey, Cap, when you get a chance, take this thing home or put it somewhere or hide it somewhere in the trunk for them. And say, listen, just bring this thing home. It's not the crime of the century. But to actually go to the point that you have to report it, which me says without context, maybe there's the environment you're telling me. Maybe people are so terrified in IAB that they think there's bugs everywhere and people watching them. I don't know what goes on there. Thank God I wasn't in IAB. But at the same time, that's not a way to live. But yet at the upper echelon, they're living pretty. They can do whatever they want. And then the rank and file is living terrified. That's not a way to go to work. I used to say that all the time. Like, some of the cops were terrified. Like, oh my God, if I have something going on this weekend, how am I going to make it? We shouldn't have an environment like that. If our cops have something going on with their family, we should encourage them. We should want them to go. We should want them to be with their families. At the same, we should have enough personnel that we should be able to juggle things around so that John doesn't miss, his kid's christening. Eric doesn't miss this or that. But we don't think about that. We don't care about the rank and file. We treat them like dogs. The only people that are taken care of on this job is the upper echelon and the unions and certain people in the fraternal organizations and people that are linked to nepotism. But the general population get treated like shit.
Yeah, so for all of you that are telling us that Banks resigned, we opened up the show, so you guys are all late. So please submit your 28s to the front desk because we actually opened up the show with that. But we appreciate you guys letting us know, And we're gonna end off the show around the head of the snake, Eric Adams, and the head's still rotten. So for all the resignations, there's one resignation that's the most important that needs to happen, and his name's Eric Leroy Adams. So let's get into this article a little bit and see what's going on here. So it was a booze cruiser. An NYPD sergeant in internal affairs claims he found a half-empty bottle of liquor in his captain's car, but that when he reported it to his bosses, it became last call for his cop career. So, I mean, a lot of people on this chat are saying, why did he search her car? It's a good question. It's a good question. I'm not gonna, I don't know why. I don't know why, unless it was just blatant, which I don't know, Michelangelo Hidalgo, 42, alleges in a new lawsuit that in July 23, his boss, Captain Janine King, asked him to take her unmarked apartment vehicle to the car wash. While he and another sergeant drove there, they heard clinking coming from the back seat and looked to find bottles hitting each other and rolling out, according to the suit. On the floor was a bottle of Angostura bitters, an 89 proof alcohol that is a key ingredient in old-fashioned and Manhattan cocktails. It was open and already started, Hidalgo, who joined the NYPD in 2005, told the Post. There was a strong smell of liquor. Hidalgo said that his colleague demanded they report the booze discovery to IAB in case they were planted there as part of an integrity test. Such undercover stings are employed to make sure police officers follow the rules. Hidalgo and his captain had been great friends working together in what's known as Group 26, which investigates police misconduct, according to the December filing. Prior to the incident, it was rumored that King was an alcoholic, the suit alleges, adding that the apartment cleaner had previously commented that King would be passed out in her office drunk regularly. Not bad looking. How you doing, King, if you listen to this? I'm married, though, so I take that back. But King was questioned about the bottle by Internal Affairs and eventually demoted to the Transit Bureau, according to the suit. After reporting the incident, Hidalgo said, King did a full 180 on me. She started to call me in the office and yell at me, stripped his overtime, and failed to submit Hidalgo for promotion, the suit claims. He eventually was transferred to IAB Group 41 under supervisor Lieutenant Gary Van Zantant in November. So, one, that sounds like a clear case of retaliation. Now, I'm not excusing him for reporting it, but that's retaliation. 100%. He was transferred after reporting corruption, and taking his overtime away. I mean, that's a little crazy.
Again, would you want to work with a guy like this? I wouldn't want to work with a guy like this. But at the same token, you're right. Since he did make the complaint, it's complete retaliation. But what it says to me, without context, I think clearly there's a lot of stuff going on that we don't know about. It sounds like there's a history between the two of them of other stuff going on. I don't know. Clearly, they're not. Clearly, they don't get along. There's obviously not a relationship there because, I mean, even if there was a captain I didn't like, or if they were drunk, then I would say, listen, you see this bottle in here? Get rid of it, because if you don't take care of this, then I'll report you. All right, I'm trying to help you out here. But to actually report it in that manner, oh man, I wouldn't want to work in internal affairs. I know you had a stint. Maybe it would be good just for a period of time, just to see what actually goes on there. But to live like that, it's terrible. I mean, that you can't even just have a conversation like, hey, Cap, you got this thing in the car. You might want to take care of this. But the point that they have to report it, and then the audacity to actually transfer him just shows the level of treatment and the abusiveness that goes on with the upper echelon, and that they just don't care about. They don't care about any repercussions. They don't even care that he's suing right now. They don't care. They could care less. They could care about any lawsuits towards the police department. The upper echelon of police department wants to protect themselves at any cost, even at the burden of the taxpayer. So you're right. It's retaliation. But this whole thing is just stupid. I wouldn't want to work with this guy. Seriously? This is what you're going to report? And I don't want to work with her either. I mean, she is cute, but I don't want to work with her. That's you retaliate against a guy and get him transferred. You guys should all be sitting there laughing about it. Like, look at this idiot. He reported me for a bottle. And now, take your penalty and then put it to bed. But just know, hey, this is the kind of guy that you work with. At the same token, like, I don't know, John. Maybe I would just look in the car and be like, all right. Maybe I wouldn't even touch it. Just tell the Cap, hey, Cap, when you get a chance, there's something in the car you might want to take a look at. But I'm not going to report it. Absolutely not.
Listen, I don't know the environment, and I think IAB gets a bad rap about that. They're all rats there. 100% from my time in IAB, I got to say, in the command, there's way more rats than anywhere on this job. Like in the commands themselves, I mean, there are habitual letter writers from the command. Habitual. Like that they just come in nonstop, complain about everything. And a lot of them are bosses, by the way. A lot of them are sergeants and lieutenants, and they're mad that the other lieutenant gets more overtime than them. And they make it like they're the PAA and they're concerned. I mean, people are sick. Like the whole job is filled. This is the environment of the entire police department. So this kid's mentality of being afraid isn't the mentality of internal affairs. It's the mentality of the entire police department. They have guys so shook on themselves. Now, it is what it is. But he's a sergeant. He's got time on the job. He's not a rookie. So, I hear you. I wouldn't have reported it either. But it was a must report. He followed the rules. And because he followed the rules, he gets his overtime taken away. He gets transferred. And he starts to become targeted by IAB. And I think as much as I don't agree with the report, I mean, if anybody's going to be the bad guy here, it's the captain and it's the chief of internal affairs, Miguel Iglesias. You know, I'm not gonna paint this guy out to be the bad guy because he did what the book told him to do and he followed the book. Like ultimately, that's what he did. He followed the rules that were put in place. If the rules were bad, don't have them. You know, but no, that was the rule you had. And then obviously nothing happened to her. And, you know, and again, if she is a drunk, maybe there's more to the story if that's true. And then maybe ultimately she needed a little wake up call. Again, we don't know why he reported it. That, you know, he says they were good friends, but I don't know. There could be a lot more to the story with her as well. So I'm not buying they were good friends. And then making the claim that, oh, by the way, she's also a drunk. We have seen people get drunk and crash their department cars. I mean, it happened a couple of times this year, people in the executive rank. So I'm not knocking the kid for reporting it. I'm just saying I wouldn't have. And then, but if I'm looking at who the bad guy here is, you have to dig it. This kid gets a car, possibly could be an integrity test, reports it because it's in the rules. And then ultimately, he's the bad guy. And no, I'm not buying it. Miguel Iglesias is the bad guy. Captain Janine King is the bad guy in this story. And this is what the NYPD is focused on. It's not fighting crime. It's not any of that stuff. It's that, you know.
I agree with you. Who's the bad guy in this? You know, it's like talking about Scarface. You know, who's the bad guy? Absolutely, she's the bad guy, and so is the chief because they completely retaliated. You know, they should have said, "Listen, it's stupid. Hey, listen, you could have just let me know." But at the same token, to actually come down with such a heavily weighted arm to actually have him transferred is quite abusive. But again, it goes back to what I've been saying. The Internal Affairs is not there to investigate misconduct and corruption. It's there to protect the upper echelon of the police department. You know, I've always suspected that, and we see it much further now, especially in our complaint with Internal Affairs. And ours is a very serious nature where our kids were actually threatened their lives of them. So, you know, again, it kind of goes back to what I believe in good judgment and bad judgment. So, and it kind of reflects when I think about my lieutenant's test. I had the silliest lieutenant's test. If anybody on this thread here, if you actually took the same lieutenant's test, you know, you can comment. I appreciate it. So my test, it was like preparing for a boxing match for 6 months. You go into the ring and then they pass you a basketball. That was my test. So we studied the patrol guy. Then we had all these judgment questions. And one of the judgment questions I'll never forget was basically you're at the desk. You're the desk officer. You're newly promoted lieutenant. And somebody says that their kid's got a broken arm and they got to go to the hospital and they need the day. And one of the questions, and also there was no excusals as per the CO. So one of the questions, you know, do you notify the CO? Do you tell him he can't have the day? And some other stupid thing. And then one was give him the day. So of course I looked at it and said, I get the policy. It says no excusal. But this kid's son has a broken arm. I'm not calling the CO. You crazy? I'm giving him the day. I can care less. Even if the CO yells at me, so what? Like this cop's son has a broken arm. He's going to the hospital. That's it. So, you know, that's what I'm saying. Those are rules, but you have to have good judgment. And sometimes good judgment is breaking the rules in a case like that. So sure enough, the answer was give him the day. And I remember I got it right. And I figured most people would. And then I was talking to people and like, oh, call the CO. I put deny him the day. I'm like, what? And then I realized I wouldn't want to work with half these people. I said, I would rather have gotten the answer wrong because no way. Of course I'm giving the day. It was like one time, I'll never forget. I was a cop and I called. I was working in the 120 and I called. I said, the TS picked up. I said, listen, buddy, my wife's going to labor. I'm on my way to the hospital. Just put me in for the day. He said, oh, hold on. I need to put you in with the desk. I said, are you kidding me? I just told you. I'm taking the day. My wife's going to labor. Bye. I'm not, at that point, you care less what's going to happen. I'm telling you, like, you actually need me to, you're going to put me on the phone at the desk. Why don't we have some fortitude and have some balls? Say, listen, hey, Sergeant, Eric Dim called. His wife's going to labor. Needs a day. You're actually going to put me on the phone with the desk? Get out of here. And that's why we have to have good judgment. We need strong men. So, it just shows sometimes we have weak men on this job because they're scared of the repercussions of the upper echelon. And that's not a way to live. And that's bad leadership.
Yeah. So, but again, I'm not. I don't think. I like after hearing this story, I don't think it's poor judgment on his part for. I don't think it's poor judgment on his part for reporting it, because obviously he was right. She's a piece of garbage. She's a piece of garbage, and they came after him, retaliated against him, and transferred him. Right? We're told to follow the rules. You're a captain. You're an executive in the Internal Affairs Bureau. You're supposed to uphold integrity. So have a little integrity yourself. You had a bottle of alcohol in your car. It is what it is. Nothing happened to you anyway. And then not only does he get transferred out of the group, then they have some lieutenant coming after him, and then they ultimately transfer him out of IAB. I mean, I think it shows that, again, it just shows the police are incapable of policing themselves. And, maybe we should look in Janine King's career, see what she's got. If all this is true, I say that ultimately he was right then for doing it. And what we saw is that the decision was report, because maybe he saved her from driving drunk. Maybe he saved her from passing out drunk in the office again, showing up to work, and possibly getting fired. So again, I'm not excusing anything. I just think all this is nonsense. And ultimately, if I look to anyone to be the moron, it's the captain who left a half-open bottle of liquor in her car and then gave it to somebody else while she was assigned to IAB to go clean a car.
No, I agree. My point is this. My point is, I do think it's bad judgment on his part, but this bad judgment is created because of the weight of the upper echelon. Like, if he was in an environment where he knew that he could trust the upper echelon to make the right decisions, then maybe it wouldn't get to that point. And that's my point. So maybe he would feel comfortable enough just to have that conversation, like, hey, Cap, there's something in here that shouldn't belong. Goes back to what I always say, right? There's an ability to lead people below you, but there's also ability to lead people above you, to manage people above you, right? As a sergeant, you would be managing a captain above you, saying, hey, Cap, just want to let you know there's something in the car. And now you build that relationship. You're communicating. Take care of it. But obviously, they don't have that relationship. So he didn't feel comfortable enough. And that's why I say it's bad judgment. It's bad judgment because the leadership is terrible. The leadership of the police department, because he knows the arm of the upper echelon is coming for him either way. If he just has that conversation, maybe he's getting transferred anyway. If he reports it, that's how I'm looking at it that way. Maybe if he reports it, at least it's documented to protect him, because he knows he's going to get transferred. So now he has a lawsuit. So either way, it just shows this department is riddled with terrible leadership. Every chief on this job is compromised. We really need to look at the promotions of these commanding officers. Most of them are DEI promotions. It's a shame it's happening at this point, and they're not the most suitable. I mean, it's just unfortunate. It has nothing to do with her being female black. It's just unfortunate. We see many promotions on this job that just not properly required, and they shouldn't be in those positions. Again, what this job is mostly riddled with nepotism. So I wonder, maybe she has ties to McGlacius, maybe she has ties to Banks. I don't know, but this does open a lot of questions.
Yeah, people are saying she's no longer in IAB. She's in Transit District 34 now. So whatever. Rob Nappy says, in my experience, this situation was usually the person making the EEO or IAB log request the transfer. You can't just move them against their will. That is retaliation for sure. Yeah, I mean, that's what it looks like. That's what he's alleging. If the Post is reporting it accurately, that's what And then Tom MBA 2 says it took 2 sergeants in IAB to wash a car. It's a good point.
What's funny? I was thinking the same thing, because when we first spoke about it, I think he took the car by himself, but then he said, "Oh, that we heard bottles clank. Like, till you had to go wash the car."
Yeah,
that's hilarious. And again, internal affairs needs a complete overhaul. Get those bums out. They're all bums. Internal affairs is designed to protect the upper echelon. We can have a complete investigation with the upper echelon. Somehow, some cop has nothing to do with it is getting some blame and punishment. Ridiculous. Complete overhaul. Get them bums out. McGlacius, bum.
Janine King, not bad. She got 60 misdemeanors, 19 felonies, 7 violations, 5 infraction arrests. So not bad. No, not bad activity.
No, it's not bad at all.
Yeah, not bad.
But clearly, John, clearly there's something going on though between the captain and the sergeant, or just the whole entire environment there that no one's trusting each other. I mean, it sounds like a horrible place to work, honestly. I mean, I've had a lot of people in my career work for me, and they went to internal affairs. You know, they were drafted as sergeants, and I've never heard anything good. They all had miserable experiences. I never heard anything good.
I don't know. I don't take anybody's word for it, because half the people in there, I got drafted, and then they're there for 10 years with SDS, or and then they go back as a lieutenant, and it's like, I'm like, okay, so but then you volunteered 8 times after that. Like, I don't understand. But, I hate it. It was terrible. It's like, so why are you here?
You know what? That's true, John. You're right.
You know what I mean? Like, everybody hates it, but nobody leaves, and I'm like, okay, That's why when they want, like, they put me in for the money when I only had a year in IAB, and then the day I hit my 2 years, I submitted to leave, and everybody looked at me like I had 10 heads, and everyone's like, "You crazy? You're gonna get the money. You're on the grid." And I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to be here. Like, I don't. I did. I learned it. I'm glad I learned it. I just don't want to be here anymore. I did my job while I was here, and that's it. I just not for me. But I ultimately, like, that. It's not a terrible environment. It's the environment of the NYPD. It's the same exact environment. Literally. It's literally the same exact environment, except there's less work in IAB. That's it. There's less work. I mean, for most of them, for the investigators or whatever they are, there's less work.
I gotta laugh. Tom NB2A is hysterical. He's making me laugh. Good comments, brother. I remember when a sergeant and captain who were married worked in IAB. You know who washed the car. That's hilarious.
Yeah. So
Tom, thank you, brother. Obviously, Tom must have been in IAB.
So, all right. So let's get back to the scandal. So Phil Banks just resigned. We're gonna go for about another 20 minutes. We got 865 people on here. If you could just do us a favor, like, subscribe, ring the bell if you're on YouTube or Rumble. Move us up in the rankings. We appreciate that. Also, if you could do us a favor, if you're on social media, if you could like and reshare the post, we appreciate it. Reshare this stream. Appreciate it. So this comes out from the New Yorker. Last one out in City Hall. Turn off the lights. So let's see. We got Lisa Zornberg, Chief City Hall Counsel, resigned. Okay. Let's add Laura Kavanaugh, Fire Commissioner, resigned. We could also add in Daniel Nigro, Fire Commissioner, resigned. Okay. Now we have Ashwin Vasan, New York City Health Commissioner, resigned. We have Edward Caban, was raided by the FBI and resigned. We have Sheena Wright. They're saying here that she resigned, that she was raided and resigned. Adams yesterday said she didn't. So, but she was still raided, so we'll give her a 6, and she's gone, whether she's gone today or tomorrow. All he said is she didn't resign and she wasn't escorted, but when they asked her, will she step down, he wouldn't say. So she's resigning, so we'll keep her in there. Timothy Pearson raided and resigned. Raul Pintos, who was the NYPD's chief of staff for Edward Caban, raided and retired. David Banks, school chancellor, raided and retired. Philip Banks, now raided and resigned. Terrence Banks, raided. He didn't resign because he's not part of the thing. Raul Abasava, raided. She's still on the mayor's Turkish liaison, according to this. I don't know that that's accurate. James Caban, nightlife security consultant, raided. Winnie Greco, special advisor to the mayor, raided, still active. Brianna Suggs, campaign and fundraiser for Eric Adams, raided. Tom Donlin, an interim NYPD police commissioner, raided. Ingrid Lewis Martin, mayor's chief advisor, raided. She's still active. Let's not forget NYPD Commissioner Keechant Sewell resigned. So we got fired Ray Martin from the Community Affairs Coordinator for the Office of the Nightlife. Eric Ulrich, who was the New York City Buildings Commissioner, resigned and was later indicted. Anthony Saccavino, Fire Prevention Chief for the FDNY, indicted. Brian Cordasco, Fire Prevention Chief, FDNY, indicted. New York City Mayor Eric Adams, indicted. So we got 22 people in the Eric Adams staff that were either resigned, raided, or indicted. 22.
Did we mention Frank Carone?
Frank Carone, we did not mention. Frank Carone, was he raided, Frank Carone? I think he stepped down, and I think there was an investigation into him. I don't know.
There was an investigation into the church. I think he resigned.
Well, he resigned early on. He was counsel to the mayor early on.
Right.
He resigned early on, and before this whole scandal broke. Now the thing comes out about him in the church. Yeah, Frank Carone, 23 people.
Add him to the list. So this is like a grand jury here. What's a grand jury panel? 26.
Yeah, that's insane, dude. Insane. So, all right. So we got right now we have Sheena Wright currently still up to bat, according to New York City Mayor Eric Adams. We have Ingrid Lewis Martin still up to bat, chief advisor to Eric Adams, and we have Eric Adams. So all of these people have left. 23 people around New York City Mayor Eric Adams, all of whom he appointed. So 23 of his appointments are gone. Who's next?
But Ingrid Martin, wasn't she raided? Wasn't her phone taken at the airport? Oh, here we go. Logic's finest. Ingrid Martin was stopped at JFK and her phone seized. The FBI raided her home.
I said she was in there. I said raided. She was there. She's part of the 23. Yeah.
There's so many hard. It's hard to remember. She's been with Adams since he decided to run for mayor's political advisor. This is insane, brother.
Yeah. Sergeant Blue said that Sid Rosenberg has just announced his retirement and was then indicted by the feds. That's not true. That's not true. He's in Israel right now. That's not true.
And Sid's a friend to everyone. He's a friend to everyone.
He's friends with everybody. So who do you like? Listen, the head stinks. You have to say who's next. Who's resigning next? We only got 3: Adams, Ingrid Lewis Martin, Sheena Wright.
Sheena Wright's next. I mean, we saw the desperate measures she went to the other day when she knocked that reporter's phone out of his hand because desperate times go to desperate measures. And right now, it's very sensitive in this administration. They don't want anybody going near their phone. So it's very fitting. She's obviously next. I put my money on that one. I said Ingrid before, but after seeing what happened with Sheena Wright the other day, she's next. Eric Adams is going to be standing by himself.
Oh, shit. We did forget somebody. 24 people. Dom Talipso. Miranda is next. He escaped a search warrant at his residence, but he knows it's coming. Nighthawk 13666 says Miranda. Kaiser Sose, Horseface next. That's Miranda they're talking about. That's his nickname.
What about Cass Daughtry? Didn't he get his phone taken?
I think a lot of people in the NYPD got their phone taken. But
Juju, if you could let us know from the NYPD who got their phones taken so we can add them to the list, appreciate it.
Joe Momo says Horsehead. Sergeant Blue says Miranda. Lurch is next, that rat bastard. Patrick Donahue says Sid Rosenberg and Bo Dito both claim long friendship with PB3 and vouch that PB3 is a stand-up guy. All right, I'm gonna say right now, I think that these are the last days of a dying regime. I agree with you. I think she's gone. I think Eric Adams lied on Sunday when said she's gone. Yeah. So I think officially that'll come out. I can't believe it. He lied again for the millionth time in his administration. But I mean, it's funny to me. All of these people, so 24 people of his appointments are indicted, resigned, or had their house raided or their electronics taken from and yet he's sitting there playing innocent, and the reports in the media are, and I think it's all gaslighting. Kathy Hochul's telling him to clean up house. So the head, it stinks, right? The fish, he's the head of the snake. It stinks. You can't tell me all these people around you are caught up in shit and you're not. I don't believe it for a second. I really think his day is coming soon. I think we're going to see Eric Adams resign soon.
But John, what house is left to clean? The house has been cleaned out already. What's left? Talking about cleaning the house, it's over. The only way to clean this house is to get himself out of there. Eric needs to go. That's the bottom line. And that's I honestly think Kathy Hochul will not do it. I don't think she'll pull the trigger. I think she's scared to pull the trigger because he's black and she's white. I think that's the bottom line. I think that it's going to come down to Eric Adams willing to resign himself. And I think at this point, he doesn't care. I think he knows Kathy Hochul won't remove him. I think he's going to stay in place and say, you know what, you got to take me out of here. He's so narcissistic. I mean, we've never seen anybody like this before. Everyone around him, the cards have fallen, and he's still standing. Paul Haggerty, thank you so much. $20 to the podcast. Listen, as John said earlier, we appreciate all the donations. I mean, you don't have to, and we're so happy that you do. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much. We appreciate your friends that listen to this podcast. Some of the friends that listen to the podcast here, I got to speak to quite often. I appreciate it. We got some great conversations. John, let's play this. This is good stuff right here.
Yeah. Paul, thanks. We appreciate the donation, brother. So, this is Eric Adams this morning in light of the resignation. This is Pat Kiernan on New York One. Pat, not a big fan of yours, but whatever. It doesn't matter. So Eric Adams, let's just before we even play this video, let's not forget this weekend, the NYPD Hispanic Society had a gala, and they honored Eric Adams as the Man of the Year. He was there and accepted it. He accepted the award, and so I put that out on social media. And of course, I'm a racist retired cop, and I hate Eric Adams, and all those things are coming down. But I agree with you. He's a megalomaniac. He's a narcissist. I think he's going to get removed. I personally think he's going to resign. I don't think the call was to clean house. I personally think Kathy Hochul is telling him. And I think what I think is they're getting all of the transition team in place, and Jumaane Williams getting his transition team in place. That's what I believe is happening behind the scenes. I think she already told him to resign. I don't think she told him to clean house. I think she told him to clean house before you leave. That's what I think ultimately happened, to not have the incoming interim have to deal with removing all these people and then having people let him deal with all the bad press. This is what he created. I think his days are numbered. And again, the pressure should be on the governor. If New Yorkers were smart, they'd be putting pressure on the governor and city council or their other elected officials to get him out. Again, we said there's 3 ways to remove a mayor. Everyone's saying no Jumaane Williams. I don't agree with any of you. Bring Jumaane on. We can't have a corrupt criminal syndicate running the largest, not only the largest police department in the world, but the largest city in the world. If New York City collapses, and it will under these crooks, if he was to get another term, New York City would have collapsed. All of your pensions will be null and void. All of your salaries will not be getting paid. You people are out of your minds for wanting a corrupt crook to stay as the mayor in New York City. So I say bring on Jumaane, and if he does any worse than him or he does what he's doing, lock his ass up too and get him out of there. So I don't agree with any of the no Jumaane thing. I'm just not buying it. They're like, oh, he's an activist. Oh, and Eric Adams isn't. Eric Adams isn't an anti-police activist. I'm sorry. Did we forget did we reinvent the wheel for this guy?
But honestly, at this point, can it get any worse? When it comes to Kathy Hochul, that conversation, I agree. That conversation had been had. Hey, listen, you need to resign. But I don't think at any point, I would put my money, I don't think at any point does Governor Hochul take power and responsibility and actually remove him herself, or at least take credit for that. I think she's going to, if anything, that conversation may be there to say, Eric, you have to resign, but she's not going to say that she will remove him. Absolutely not. And that's because of the race card when it comes to this. Now, as far as Jumaane Williams goes, I don't think we could get any worse because, again, yes, he's the mayor, he's the lead man, but this is not a one-man operation. His entire mayoral administration has stepped down, resigned, or raided, including members of the police department. That's a problem. So even if Jumaane Williams, let's say Jumaane Williams wasn't as savvy as Eric Adams, or didn't have the silver tongue, didn't have his networks, but if he could put the people in and around him that are extremely effective and good for this administration, then we're already off to a better start than we are right now. And I agree with you. If we continue on with Eric Adams and this administration, or lack thereof, because everyone stepped down, we're going to cripple the city. No longer will we see these pensions. That's why I find it ironic that I hear people talking about the unions supposedly want to get these police officers a 20-year pension and retract from this 22 pension. When right now the pension system is pretty much hemorrhaging as we speak. Cal Fire Rescue $9.99 to the podcast. Thank you so much. I need to confess to the Honorable Unfiltered. For 2+ years, I have taken Juju number 7. There are several J's of Juju Alliance on as my, I don't even know what this means, secret gay lover. I might have left a cameo behind. I
don't know, but Juju is definitely a shot at you. So Cal Fire Rescue, thank you.
Hey, but Cal Fire Rescue, thank you so much. I'm going to try to decode this and figure out what it means, but thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, and then a couple of people on here are talking about Jumaane Williams has the same donors as Eric Adams, the ones that are in question. So Dave Savella, he actually put a report out. If you guys look at it, it's pretty interesting. So those donors donate to Jumaane Williams campaigns after Eric Adams falls under investigation. So very questionable that those donations weren't made by the Adams administration to dirty Jumaane up and muddy the waters. So those donations are very questionable because, again, they happen after all the scandals break out. So that was great reporting, great investigative work by Dave Savella. And when you look at those donations, it's clear as day when you see that and you're like, wait a minute, why did these people donate to him after all this happened? And again, they didn't say anything that the donations were illegal. They just said that they were the same as that are under question for Eric Adams for using straw donors. So you got to look at all the gaslight, and that's why the oldest profession people say is prostitution, but I say the oldest profession is politics. This is the oldest profession. This is the dirtiest game in the book. So let's hear what Eric Adams got to say. Let's see if he's sweating. Let's see if he's nervous. I haven't seen him sweat yet, so let's see.
Adams, are you able to confirm that report from the Post that Phil Banks delivered a letter of resignation last night?
We spoke yesterday and we spoke again this morning, and he stated he wants to transition to some other things with his life, and he doesn't want this to be a constant burden on the work that we're doing in the city. And I accepted his resignation. A long time, great public servant, from the chief of department to the deputy mayor of public safety, and all the initiatives, even the last initiative he's doing with removing the ghost cars of our streets. I wish my good friend well.
Adams, are you able to confirm?
I mean, dude, we are watching the most narcissistic character we've ever seen. He's still sitting there smiling. He's still telling people everything's great. I mean, again, the buildings are burned. Everybody's coming down, but everything's great. We're doing great here. We don't have Philip Banks. We don't have, we don't have David Banks. We don't have nobody left. But that's okay. Everything's going great. This is Mayor Eric Adams. Again, I don't think he's going out on his own. I think he's going to be kicking and screaming.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I'm going to win the next bet too. He's going to step down 100%. I agree with you that Kathy Hochul isn't going to remove him, but I personally believe the conversation in the back door was
how soon?
By the end of this month, he's out. If not next week.
I mean, look at that smile right now. He's smiling like everything's going great.
He's a thug. He's a gangster. He's a street hustler, of course. John Gotti was smiling his last day, but when they put him in prison, he was already convicted. He was still smiling. Yeah, nothing happened. Nothing. Everything's good. Everything's good. I'm gonna beat this.
Listen, I got to be honest, because I watch Mayor Eric Adams and I decide I have to. I be honest. I flip flop in my answer. Some days I say yeah, he's resigning. Some days I say no, because that's what he does. You don't know what he's for. You don't know what he's against. You don't know what he's doing. Every day, every time you see him speak, he says something different. But when he does speak, he makes it seem like everything's going fantastic. If you didn't know anything about New York City politics and you saw Eric Adams for the first time speak, you'd be like, what? Everybody says something's going on in New York City. It looks great. This guy, he makes it seem like everything's under control. He'd be a hell of an actor. I think his next step should be Hollywood.
Well, according to Eric Adams, nobody was stepping down either. And now all of a sudden, 26 people have just decided, I'm just going to focus on family now. I'm just going to focus on Phil Banks is just going to focus on family now. He's going to watch the Knicks. He's going to do that. 100% unfiltered fish. And nothing to see here. Move along. His justification's unbelievable. It's true. So recently in Chicago, I don't know if you guys seen this. This is hysterical. So the entire like school board, like all his school appointments have resigned, Brandon Johnson. And then this is the Democratic machine throughout the country, right? This guy is like, as much as I bash Eric Adams, this guy is 1,000 times worse than Eric. I don't know 1,000 times worse than Eric Adams, but he's dumber than Eric Adams. He's definitely a worse mayor than Eric Adams. Like, Eric Adams is the worst mayor in New York City history. He's the most already. He's the most corrupt mayor in New York City history. He has the worst administration in New York City history. But this guy is the worst mayor in the country, Brandon Johnson. He has taken the cake. Him and Tiffany Hayward, I believe, is the other one outside in the outskirts of Chicago. They're the two worst mayors in New York in the country right now. They're going neck and neck. Let's hear this after his entire school board resigns. Listen to this.
Just to follow up on that, the reports are that as many as several of the CPS board members are thinking about resigning. Do you expect some of them to resign? And 6 months before a new school board, a hybrid school board comes in, why would they do that?
I guess that's the nature of Chicago, where there are a lot of rumors. There was a song about that too, Paris. Do you remember the name of that song, Paris? Look at all these rumors. It's okay. You can Google it. But I don't live in that space, because it distracts us from what we really have to do. Right? So here's the thing. How about I do this for you? So you don't have to live in rumors. How about we just live in the truth? And here's the truth. I'm going to do whatever is necessary for the people of Chicago when it comes to our public education system.
Let's live in truth, Eric.
I gotta say, you know what? Maybe that's what's keeping Eric Adams afloat and keeping him smiling. Because he's like, you know what? If this guy could still be mayor, I sure as hell could be mayor. Because yeah, Eric Adams is by far the worst in New York City history. But I have to agree, this guy is by far takes the cake. He is ultimately the worst. Now, if anybody says Jumaane Williams can be worse, I mean, I don't know. There's a tough argument there. But if you were to get this guy, then you have an argument. This guy, he's absolutely at least Eric Adams could actually bamboozle you. This guy couldn't sell wet towels in a car wash. But again, Eric Adams, you're in the most iconic city in the entire country and probably the entire world. This is the financial capital of the world. We need someone that can run an administration. We need someone that can lead. And he surely can't do that. It's not always important if actually who's in position of leadership to be the smartest person in the room, but you have to put the right people in and around you. Clearly his appointments are terrible. Cal Fire Rescue firing back with another one. I appreciate, but no, you sickos. I did not leave a camera in Juju's behind. I meant I possibly left a few behind in his shared area of the super secret leased Pearl Street data center office. Outstanding. Thank you so much for the $9.99. I appreciate it.
Could you just send the tapes to the finestsunfiltered.com if you can message us? We appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll take that.
And if it was a freak out and if Diddy attended, we appreciate it. So all right. So here's Eric Adams yesterday at the Pulaski Day parade. Let's see what Eric Adams got to say. The NYPD Hispanic Society's Man of the Year, Eric Adams.
Is he the mayor of Poland?
So, but I really just take note of it. It's almost identical to what the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson. Listen to this. You ready? This is how you know that I won the bet and Eric didn't. But it's also confirmed. It's this is a twofer. So here we go.
Are you expecting Sheena to be your Q&A this week?
But we reformatted our Q&A because it just focused on this, the investigation, and not the work that my deputy mayors have done and will continue to do. I don't want to put my deputy mayors through that. And I thought it was unfortunate that there was a lie passed out that First Deputy Mayor Wright was escorted out of City Hall. That was just a lie. It was a lie that she resigned on Friday. It was a lie. I think there's so many mistruths out there that we need to be accurate. And all you got to do is ask the administration. And so it's unfortunate that First Deputy Mayor Wright had to go through those series of lies and hysteria. It's like a feeding frenzy of accuracy and truthfulness doesn't no longer matter. we should allow the process to take its place, and that's the discipline that I have and I'm going to maintain.
Is she planning to resign, and what are you looking for in the next first deputy mayor?
When the decision is made of policies, we must have said this 1,000 times in this administration, not only now, but in the past. When the decision is made, the policy shifts. No matter if we bring someone on or someone decides to leave, we make it a formal announcement so that there's no rumors attached to it. And I'm looking for exactly what Sheena has always brought to us, a level of commitment and dedication. As long as she wants to do that, I'm happy to have her. And whoever comes in any of our positions, we want that same level of commitment and dedication. Yes.
So what do you think, Eric? Is he telling the truth, or is everybody else lying? Which one is that?
You gotta laugh because he said, "I'm happy with the work my deputy mayors are doing." The deputy mayors, they're all gone. What are you talking about? You don't have any deputy mayors. Again, more gaslighting. I'm impressed how he could just lie through his teeth constantly. I'm trying to take notes here because I couldn't do it. I tell like the littlest lie, and and my wife like, all right, I know you. I'm like, all right, I can't lie, but this guy can lie about anything. He's telling you his mayors are doing great. They're doing great. Oh yeah, really? You don't even have any left. Driver's seat, $9.99 to the podcast. Thank you so much. You would think Adams would be embarrassed by all the scandal, but he's enjoying all the attention. You know what? I said this on the last podcast. I said this last week. You're absolutely right. I think he enjoys it. I think he actually enjoys being the last man standing. I think that he's thriving off this. I think he gets off on it. Like everybody's falling, but I'm still here. Kicking and screaming, brother. I'm going with kicking and screaming.
Yeah. So yeah, he's I know he's done. He's done. These are the last days of a dying administration. I don't care what anybody says. These are the last days of it. He can't last. His legs have been cut out essentially. It's just a matter of time before he falls. Crow Eater talks about Sheena Wright. Her attempting to forcibly remove the cell phone of a reporter was caught on camera. She committed attempted robbery and needs to be arrested. It's exactly right. If a cop did that, there would be hell to pay. If a civilian did that to anybody else, there would be hell to pay. So obviously, again, he has more lies, more misinformation. It's him that's actually spreading the rumors that everything's fine and the city hall's not caught up in actual scandal. A lot of guys like Sheena Wright. I'm a fan of Sheena Wright myself. I think she's a pretty woman myself. So I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say what the comments that they're making, but who replaces Adams should he resign? It's gonna be the activist, the now public advocate, Jumaane Williams. He will replace him as mayor temporarily until there is an election. And, everyone's going nuts about, it's Jumaane Williams. Well, guess what, people? You voted for him for public advocate. So I don't, like the bottom line is, I didn't vote. Well, too bad. You should have voted, So everyone that hates Jumaane Williams, Joe Borelli ran against him, and Joe Borelli could be the public advocate. As much as I think Joe is soft, I'd much rather see Joe Borelli as the mayor than any of them. But that's another day. So I don't have the video of her ready, so I'm not going to get it ready. We're going on 2 hours and 22 minutes, 940 people with us. I really appreciate everybody being here. Eric, you got anything before we start to wrap this up?
No, I think our friends and listeners, they've been here for almost 2.5 hours. I appreciate it. Early in the morning. Thank you for being with us. I think we hit a lot of good points. Again, I just want to go back to, we had Tom Sullivan here, true American patriot. He was a colonel, a soldier. He comes from a family, a deity of law enforcement, deity of military service. You heard his platform. He believes in supporting you by supporting qualified immunity. He believes this potential proposal for police officers to have insurance is absolutely ridiculous and absurd. I agree. I want to thank Tom Sullivan. Please support him. If he's not in your district, contact someone that is, and get them aware and ask the unions. Why are you supporting the opposition, Tom Sullivan? We just saw Tom Sullivan today on New York's Finest Retired Unfiltered podcast, and he supports law enforcement. Why are our union dues going to someone that's in complete opposition, that someone actually wants to hurt our career, that ultimately hurts public safety? So with that being said, thank you to the friends and listeners of the podcast. We'll check out Tom Sullivan, and you heard it here. We'll see you tomorrow, 8:05 live Eastern Time, 5:05 in the morning Pacific Time. Thank you to all friends and listeners to the podcast. Thank you to those that give donations. We really appreciate it. I've met some great people on this podcast. I spoke to a gentleman here who was actually drafted in internal affairs in 1992. We got our good friend Ron Mason, Patrick Jordan here. A lot of great friends and listeners to the podcast. Actually spoke to someone here who's been helping me out with some tech issues. So we're building a whole network here, and we're building a coalition. So thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at 8:05 tomorrow. And he has an advertisement paid for by the friends of Tom Sullivan. Tom Sullivan is the Republican, Conservative, and Common Sense Party candidate for New York State Assembly District 23. Tom is a financial professional who served simultaneously in the United States Army Reserve for 30 years and has now retired. His district covers Ozone Park, Lindenwold, Howard Beach, Broad Channel, and the Rockaway Peninsula.
Come November, I would empower our law enforcement agencies to go out there and do their job and not put them or their families or their pensions at risk for doing their jobs. We need drastic change in Albany so that we have a say in this matter, and they realize people of New York State will hold them accountable.
The Sullivan family has a legacy of service. Tom served for 30 years protecting and defending the rights of others. Come this November, he has earned your support. This advertisement's paid for by the friends of Tom Sullivan.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.